בחרמון נמס השלג בחצי הלילה, בחרמון זורם לו פלג בחצי הליל. אבא שם על הר השלג בחצי הלילה, שר שירים על נס בפלא עם כל ישראל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. בבקעת תמר פורח בחצי הלילה, הירח שם זורח בחצי הליל. שם אחי ודאי שומע בחצי הלילה את שירנו השמח כאן בישראל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. במדבר הולך החושך בחצי הלילה, שקט הס בארץ גושן בחצי הליל. לדודי עיני נחושת בחצי הלילה, וגם הוא חוגג כמו שכל בית ישראל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. ואני יושב בבית בחצי הלילה, עם נרות וגביע יין בחצי הליל, וכוכב מאיר עיניים בחצי הלילה, לי מוסר ברכת שמיים ולכל ישראל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. האביב שוב צוהל ואיתי משתולל, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה לילה, איזה ליל. שוב צוהל.
Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Доводи всяке озброєння, різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар.
Future
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1012 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again as we have very big news of Russia launching major airstrikes in Syria, and also Israel intercepted an Iranian plane over Syria today, causing a bit of an incident. And also, it is the Sunday night fundraiser stream, and it is a big Sunday night to raise more money for charity for Ukraine. And a big old
And, of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world, as we have been able to hear that SSG forces have continued to battle the Syrian Arab Army outside of the outskirts of Hama, as it appears that the battle is now beginning to rage heavily, and the Syrians somehow have been able to slow or possibly stop the SSG advance, at least for the time being, compared to the rapid advance we saw just yesterday of nearly 50 miles a day. Meanwhile, it appears that the Russians are pulling every single trick out of the book that they've been doing for decades at this point, as they started to bomb innocent civilians in carpet bombings in the city of Aleppo today, largely to show that they are a little displeased with the actions of another group that those civilians have absolutely no control over. Once again showing the Russian Federation conducting atrocities and crimes against humanity in the persecution of its own strategic objectives inside the Middle East. Meanwhile, in other regions, it appears that the Syrian Arab Army is hardly hanging on, as nearly 30 SAA forces were captured today south of Aleppo by the SSG, once again showing that those forces have been completely shattered, and it appears that there is no defensive element south of Aleppo inside of the desert near to the Sabkat al-Jabul Lake. We have also been able to hear additional information that the United States Air Force operating A-10C Warthogs near to the area of Al-Mayadeen have been able to conduct another decisive strike against the Syrian Arab Republic's armed forces on the southern side of the Euphrates River in support of Syrian Democratic Forces operations. Meanwhile, we have been able to get some additional information about a major diplomatic incident that has happened earlier today, as an Iranian aircraft was attempting to supply the Assad regime with an additional amount of weapons and support. And that aircraft was intercepted by the Israeli Air Force and turned around immediately, heading straight back to Iran. The Iranians have made statements saying that they will continue to try and supply literally any and every provisions that they can to the Syrian Republic's government to help them out in the war effort. And so far, the information about the possible coup being conducted by Assad's brother and the 4th Brigade has gone silent, possibly showing that they've either been crushed or that there was something else going on entirely, for that matter, in Damascus that night. Meanwhile, outside of Syria, we have been able to hear inside the Republic of Georgia, the riots have now gone into nearly a full-on uprising as civilians are starting to take hostile and even somewhat lethal measures against law enforcement today to once again try and force an overthrow of the Georgian Dream Party that was elected in incredibly odd and suspicious circumstances. Meanwhile, we've also been able to hear that inside of the war in Ukraine, the Russian Federation has attempted another offensive push today in the Kursk Oblast that has suffered a serious defeat, appearing to take incredibly high losses and taking no ground whatsoever. The famous and revered 810th Naval Infantry Brigade has once again been defeated near the Bolshoi Soldatskoy and has made no offensive progress whatsoever. Throughout multiple areas of the front lines in Ukraine, we have seen that the Ukrainians have continued their offensive actions of Vovchansk, making no ground but still inflicting decent losses on the Russians, and the Russians in turn have been attempting advances in the Pokrovsk, Seversk, and Volodar areas, taking high losses and practically no ground as well. Nevertheless, with all of this major news going on, today is without a doubt a very large day. And one has to always remember that people here watching this channel, regardless whether people believe it or not, have a very large impact on how these sorts of conflicts and how these sorts of events turn out around the world. Folks go to the ballot box every single year to be able to, well, not every single year, but at least inside the United States, every 4 years to be able to elect their commanders-in-chiefs and leaders of the country that will hopefully move the United States forward in its strategic prerogatives as efficiently as possible. Beyond that, however, beyond the elections where people cast their votes and one of the most sacred and honored rights of a democracy, many people have to carry on the struggle day by day, year in and year out, to continue to see that American and Western interests prevail overall. And tonight is one of those nights here on this channel. Tonight we are running a Sunday night fundraiser, of course as usual, for Nova Ukraine, an amazing nonprofit that is helping out specifically in the humanitarian capacity inside of Ukraine and helping the Ukrainian government to untie a lot of government burden from the humanitarian aspect and on into the warfighting aspect, helping them to continue to keep the Russians at bay in these endless onslaughts of offensives. One has to remember that each and every single person watching this channel tonight actually has a real and physical impact. Many people do not get to say that. Some people march in the streets, some people petition the government, but very few can say that they have a direct and actual lasting impact on how these conflicts turn out. And tonight, everyone has that opportunity to join us in the fundraiser tonight for Nova Ukraine and to actually say that they help to make some difference in untying Ukrainian government resources and helping them to be diverted to where they matter the most on the front line. We are able tonight to be able to ensure that the Ukrainian government will continue to carry on the battle against the Russian Federation in Western and American interests, and we will make sure, as we always have as the Lee Spring Army, to continue to support American and Western interests around the world, as this Grand Republic will ensure that every single one of our adversaries, rivals, and enemies of the nation will be continued to be put at bay by the Lee Spring Army as much as we possibly can. We have a $3,000 fundraiser goal tonight, and I know that the entirety of the Lee Spring Army will be working tirelessly the entire length of the stream to be able to ensure that that $3,000 goal is reached. While small in the big picture, it still makes a massive mark on the humanitarian impact in Ukraine, and our efforts will be known by many inside of Ukraine and around the world. And so I hope that we are able to hit that $3,000 fundraiser goal tonight. But moving on into the major breaking news that we have, we were able to hear that inside of the Republic of Syria, things are not going that well at all. It appears that the Syiran Arab Army is continuing to run into major issues and problems along the way as the rebels have largely been able to cement themselves inside of northern Hama. The information that we've been getting is somewhat sporadic and not really that well put together. We have seen some groups saying that the rebels are in control of Hama. We've seen others saying that somehow the SAA was able to counterattack and push the rebels back out of Hama and attempt to secure their locations. It appears that according to our information at the moment, the rebels inside of Hama are still there at the moment. We got video and picture evidence to corroborate that the rebels were there yesterday, and we have not gotten any video and picture evidence to confirm that they have now been pushed back out of the city by the SAA. It appears that the SAA is south of the city of Hama and attempting to set up defensive positions at this moment, from what we understand. But beyond that, the picture is still a little vague. But we have been able to see enough video and picture evidence to confirm that the SSG is able to show that the Hama military airport is still abandoned, and that has been clearly seen today on drone and video evidence. This is something that we always have to point out here with video and picture evidence, as that this gives us the clearest indicator of what really is going on the ground. And from what we can understand, the SAA has abandoned the city as even an airport, which would be in a defensive area south of the city if the SAA had actually counterattacked and pushed the SSG north of Hama, would actually be occupied and most likely used at this moment. And we're not seeing that at all as of today when this drone video and picture evidence was taken. We are able to see this right here as this drone quite literally just flew around the base. We can actually see some SSG forces in a pickup truck back there near to these, it appears, Syrian Albatross aircraft, showing that they are in clear control of the airport as of today, showing that any maps and information that are saying that the SAA is actually back in control of Hama has to be blatantly untrue, as the SSG still appears to be in complete control of the airport at the moment on the very southern side of the city. We can see the drone continuing to pan over. We can see multiple vehicles of the SSG moving around the facility, once again observing and cataloging apparently the captured aircraft that they now have in their possession at the moment. We can see them once again showing the area around the airport. And we see them panning. This is actually a view looking, from what we understand, and let me make sure, I believe that this drone is actually currently looking southbound from Hama, and it actually would be, at least from what, actually it looks as though, do you notice that, Matthew? The Hama airport, well, actually, this is, I'm sorry, correction, everyone. This is actually the airport at Aleppo. I believe we have an additional clip here in a second that will be showing the one at Hama, and let me go and make sure that I double check that, because from what I was able to see, okay, so here we go. This is the Hama military airport, because I was looking at the tarmac there and I was like, that looks entirely different than what we've seen before. This picture right here, we'll be getting to the Aleppo airport in just a second, and sorry for that typo really quickly, everyone. We were trying to get the stream together really quickly before the stream because there was a lot going on today. But nevertheless, this does appear that there was a drone attack being conducted on the pad about right here, showing that there was some Syrian aircraft that were in this area earlier today, but it also appears to be that the airfield is entirely abandoned from what we understand, and it is showing that the SSG has some sort of control inside of Hama and are not that far north. From what we understand, the SSG is using a commercial version of a drone in an FPV role in this video, and for this reason, knowing that they can only be a few miles away from the airport. Hama is not big enough for them to be a few miles away and be completely out of the city on the northern side. So the fact that they have been able to attack and destroy this element within this area is showing us that they are somewhere in the city as of today, and most likely in complete control of the city according to the information that we have at the moment. But going off of that, though, we were also able to see that the SDF, really quickly to show this, is in control of the Aleppo airport just outside of Aleppo, which we can see right here. Also home to a decent amount of Syrian aviation, which is very interesting to see. And also, just to make sure to corroborate this, just so that way we can make sure, because I tried to geolocate it there and then noticed that the tarmac was completely different. This appears to be the Hama, well, actually, you know, Matthew, I'm having a very hard time with geolocation tonight, because I just looked at this airport, and this airport looks nothing like the one that has been geolocated here, that is located near Aleppo. And this is apparently the Syrian Air Force Kursk Air Base, and I am not seeing that at the moment around Aleppo. So let's see if we can actually try and find it here really quickly, because now I have to be in the mad dash to find it live on air. And so
you might have to cheat tonight and actually type it in the Google search box and see if you can spot it that way.
So let's see here. We're going to put in the Kursk.
Also, by the way, this chat's freaking running off the rails tonight. I'm not sure if you're seeing this, Enforcer, but this thing is running off the rails. Like, good Lord.
Really?
Yeah, man, it's a doozy over here to deal with all of it. It's bots galore, it's donations galore. We're up to 1.4 thousand almost
Dang,
already, so it's been
really?
going wild. Yeah, it's going crazy.
That is crazy. Hopefully, we can actually get to 3,000 before the hour even ends on the stream, because we're about 24 minutes into the stream and we're about halfway there. So, if we can get even further, that would be absolutely incredible. A huge shout out to everyone so far, because the fundraiser started when I made that speech earlier at the beginning of the stream at only about $400, and we've now raised another $1,000 or so in support of this fundraiser operation. But nevertheless, here is the airport. We actually found it. Here it is, the Quarries Air Force Base of the Syrian Air Force. We can actually see the L-39 Albatrosses even on satellite picture, and this is the facility that was captured by the SDF recently.
Also, by the way, I would assume that Syrian like air assets probably are not very strong, considering it is Assad's military. It's not like a premier military or anything like that. So I would assume, in your opinion, that their air force is probably pretty weak.
Oh, their air force is incredibly weak. They don't really have an air force at this point. That's why the Israelis are really able to control Syria's airspace whenever they wish. Most of these aircraft and vehicles have been abandoned, really, to be entirely honest, for at least 5 or 6 years, because the Syrians really do not have the ability to fund or operate an air force at this point. So for the large part, any aviation of any sort in the Syrian army practically doesn't exist except on paper, and that's kind of the on paper part, are these planes just sitting around on the tarmac for years and years on end without ever really being moved, even at all. But moving on out of this, though, it is very interesting to see that the rebels were able to take control of this area. From what we understand, a third of Aleppo is under control of the SDF, that is the eastern side, so this Air Force base actually came under the control of the SDF earlier. Still, showing that 2 air bases are now under the control of the rebels, either the SDF or the SSG, and we've also been able to see later on in the day that a Syrian general somewhere around Hama actually ended up getting killed today by an SSG FPV drone strike. That's when you know that the Syrian army really isn't doing well, is when one of their generals is so close to the front that they're able to get wiped out by an FPV. And we now see here the targeted vehicle that apparently has the Syrian general inside of it, and the drone went right down on the roof, taking it out, and the general with it. So from what we understand, the Syrians are taking a pretty considerable loss in the area of Hama at the moment, at least in terms of their command abilities, although they really didn't have any in the first place, as it appears that one of their generals in charge of the area has now been killed. We were also able to get
Also, by the way, just on a historical note, wasn't Syria the first country to actually use the FPV drones in a war or an active conflict? I believe they were the first ones, and then Ukraine really took it from there.
Kind of, sort of, like the first time we ever saw drones being used with a bomb attached at all, it was in Syria, but it was a very, very, very small amount. Generally because it was pretty hard for that kind of technology to get into Syria, entirely honest. But the real place we saw drone warfare really kick off was the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war in between Azerbaijan and Armenia. That's really where we saw the first use of mass-produced FPV drones inside of any conflict. And then when the Ukraine war kicked off, the Syrians, which crawled with the FPV, so that way the Armenians and Azerbaijanis could walk with the FPV, the Ukrainians took it and then ran with it and really mastered it into the kind of doctrine that it is today, with massive amounts of drone support augmenting the infantry on the battlefield. That's kind of like the evolutionary process that we saw with like commercial FPV drones being used in that kind of a role, is that Syria used it in a very minuscule amount. The Nagorno-Karabakh war was the first place it became mainstream, and then the Ukrainians took it and mass-produced it and then mastered the doctrine overall.
Yeah, that's what's kind of unique, because I see a lot of people in the live chat saying it looks like the Syrians are now using what the Ukrainians perfected. That is, like the Enforcer saying, that is kind of true, but actually it did, of course, like the Enforcer said, not originate in an active conflict using those drones inside of Ukraine. Like you said, they just perfected it. So very interesting. Like many people believe that Syria is actually copying Ukraine, but they're actually not.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing how a lot of different strategies and tactics actually evolve over multiple countries, over actually a good span of years. That's usually how it goes, actually, really, in any conflict in history, is that one person comes up with this amazing idea and they're completely forgotten about and never talked about again. One of those people, bringing up a cool rabbit hole for y'all, and a big shout out to all of the Swedish folks who are here watching the stream right now, the first person who ever really started to create what people would know as line battles was a guy called Gustavus Adolphus from Sweden, who was actually the leader of Sweden at the time. I believe he was the king. But nevertheless, Gustavus Adolphus created, out of the pike and shot era, an incredibly long formation that was thin in depth, only consisting of about 4 or 5 ranks deep of men, but still being incredibly wide and allowing them to leverage a large amount of firepower at any given moment in a single direction. Gustavus Adolphus was the guy who started to kill off the pike and shot era with this sort of a strategy and tactic. But this strategy and tactic never really is attributed to, say, Sweden in the modern day, really the formation of the line battle. And the formation of the pike and shot era isn't really contributed to the Dutch either, who created that era before Gustavus Adolphus changed the way wars were fought. Still, when people think about the pike and shot era, they either think of Spanish conquistadors, at least in America, or they think in the version of line battles about the British or the French in the Napoleonic Wars. It just isn't the case that the country that does it the most or the best is the one that really did it. It's always the country that will never be remembered that actually did it first. It's kind of the same thing with the automobile. The first automobile, I believe, ever made in the world was made by Daimler-Benz in 1889 in Germany, but pretty much anyone and everyone in the world, if you asked them who really made the car, they'll say the United States, because the United States was the first country to really perfect and then mass produce a variant of the car, which was the Ford Model T. But generally, speaking about drone warfare, kind of in the sense, Syria is largely forgotten as being the first country to ever use drones in that form of an FPV or that form of an attack role. They have been completely forgotten. Really, the Armenians and the Azerbaijanis were also forgotten as well, because they were the first one to really take the strategy and implement it on a front-wide level in that conflict that happened in 2020. And then in Ukraine, everyone knows it because that's what Ukraine is famous for. Kind of like how the machine gun was around before World War I. Honestly, the machine gun was around during the scramble for Africa, which is where it was really used a great deal before World War I. But no one remembers, say, any of the wars or conflicts that happened in the race for Africa in the late 19th century. When speaking of machine guns, everyone only remembers the World War I because that was where they were used the most. But beyond that, though, in that interesting way people perceive history based off of who did something the most and the best, I guess, we are able to see that the Syrians are still using that tactic today and have certainly refined it based off of the lessons learned in the Nagorno-Karabakh War as well as the war in Ukraine that's still going on to this day. But nevertheless, one thing that has not been learned by either side that's fighting in Hama at the moment is any kind of a coherent front line or strategy, or any tactics for that matter either. As we were able to see a absolutely bizarre clip today in Hama, this is apparently near to the southern side, once again confirming that the SSG is in the majority control of the city, but an SAA pickup truck started driving through the middle of 2 SSG soldiers here. And this SSG soldier, I don't know why they did it like this, but they blasted the thing with an RPG at point-blank range.
Damn, man, that's crazy to fire an RPG that close, but that thing just freaking incinerated after it got hit.
Yeah, that thing freaking, was eviscerated, but still, it is showing the chaos that's currently going on in the Battle of Hama. Truly crazy stuff. And we were also able to see in one last clip that an SAA BMP was apparently captured on the eastern side of Hama today as well. And here's that clip. We see one of the rebels running forward.
Allahu Akbar.
Hold up.
والله نضحك والله نضحك والله نضحك طلع.
That ain't no BMP, y'all. Like, one second. Now I got to tell y'all what's going on because this is just straight up confusion. So, hold up. Let's get a good view of this thing because that's not a BMP. That appears. That is a Shilka. Okay, so now I got to tell y'all something that it is a little wild about the Syrian civil war as well. Let me go get y'all a shilka so that way y'all can see what this thing really is. So the shilka's actual designation, for those of y'all who are nerds like me, is the CSU-23-4. This thing is an anti-aircraft vehicle and is largely used by everyone who owns one of these things in that role as an anti-air vehicle. However, the Syrians, which really anyone who's ever looked at an anti-air vehicle has always had this idea, because the Germans had this idea all the way back in World War II. They look at it and they go, wow, that's a really good gun at shooting down planes. I wonder how good it is at shooting people. And so the Syrians, or at least the Syrian Arab Army in the Syrian Civil War, almost never uses these things in an air-to-air role. They are pretty much used as an anti-personnel and anti-infantry vehicle. It does incredibly well in that role because it has 4 23mm autocannons that fire at an extremely high rate of fire, meaning that literally anything in front of the vehicle is going to be shredded by its fire. These things have been proven to be fairly effective in the anti-infantry role inside of Syria, and it appears that the SAA continues to use these things in that sort of a role, in that sort of capacity, up until the very day. This guy right here, who is apparently an SSG rebel, just saw this active and operational Syrian Arab Army shilka just sitting on the side of the highway, waiting for folks to pretty much run into its line of fire so they can start blasting them, and he climbed up on top of the shilka and literally held the entire crew at gunpoint and took it over. So that's a little bit of an interesting thing. Never seen this before.
Allahu Akbar.
I don't know if the people yelling snack bar are inside of the tank or not. I guess they're just kind of getting hyped up and getting their game face on, and this guy also was as well. I don't know what's going on. It is them. They're in the tank just screaming. Dude, there's nothing going on, man. Like, there's nothing going on. Like,
I thought it was the people running up yelling that the whole time. Also, by the way, the guy who's like opening the hatch and taking them hostage to like take the vehicle, it would probably be wise for him to like be quiet for a second and issue some orders instead of yelling the same thing over and over. The guy who opens the hatch and looks at the guy inside the tank, the guy inside the tank's just looking like, oh crap, like they're right there opening the hatch. He doesn't know what's going on. The guy's just yelling snack bar the whole time.
Man, dude, if this happened in the South, you just got this guy opening up the hatch and pointing a gun in your face and yelling, praise Jesus, praise Jesus. It's like, what do you want me to do, man? Like, it's like,
Look at this guy's face.
for he's like, why
No,
are
what
you
the hell?
He's like, why do you have to yell? It's only game. He's just like, what's going on? I'm not seeing the clip, but I think he
I'm just
took the
saying.
shilka.
I'm just saying here. Like O2 said in the live chat, sounds like he's in a bit of a panic. These guys, like, I think they're trying their best, but you can tell they're not apparently trained very well, because for them to be panicking that bad and they're taking a vehicle by surprise like that, it indicates a lack of training in some way or another. Because these guys are just losing it, like running up to the tank, like they're on the verge of just going into a freak out session.
Man, I'm not gonna lie, man. Syria is like a COD lobby. Like, I don't think anyone actually knows what they're doing. They just run around with guns, and then they run into each other, and something happens, and someone wins. Like, there's really no concerted tactics on the ground in Syria. It's always just like this weird free-for-all kind of a thing that's going on. So it's really hard for us to get the normal kind of battle analysis that we would get from a conventional army, because a conventional army works pretty consistently. However, the Syrian Arab Army or the Syrian Salvation Government, or really the SDF, don't really work like that. They're very loosely organized, and so it's really hard to get any idea of what they're doing most of the time. But moving on from that, though, we were able to see that the Syrian Arab Army is now already starting to fire MLRS rockets back into the city of Hama to try and retake it from the SSG. And it looks as though they're firing a great deal. We also got to see that they fired a Tachka into the city of Hama today as well. A pretty old missile. It's pretty much obsolete in most areas of the world, rarely used in Ukraine, but the Syrians have a decent amount of these things left because simply they're poor. So here's
Damn, son, where'd you find this? Everything coming out of Syria is just freaking loud and fast. The videos are just loud as hell. I've never heard volume like this on a video except out of Syria.
Dude, my ears are bleeding. But also, dude, listen to after it launches, listen to this. What was he doing? Like the rocket launched, he was like making noise into a fan to hear the fan like modulate. He was going,
oh. Man, he was really enjoying that rocket launch, if you know what I mean.
Man, I'm telling you, he was enjoying it a little too much. Someone check on this guy. But we were also able to see another clip afterwards as it continued to fly off into the distance. Dude, he's about to become a Mongolian throat singer, man. He's about to go. It's like, dude.
Bar.
That's it, bro. He's about to go, oh, snack bar! That's just something like that. He's just getting it hyped up, and then he's like, something like that. It's like, bro, calm down, man, calm down. But beyond that, while absolute chaos is happening around Hama, and it is quite literally a PvP arena down there, like PUBG or Fortnite or Call of Duty, it appears that up in Aleppo, the Russians have more sinister plans to punish the rebels and the local population for what just happened recently, as it does appear that the Russians have started to just quite literally carpet bomb the city of Aleppo. We can't even show you all that clip, apparently. I didn't see anything that was too questionable in it, at least earlier. It was pretty, of course, unfortunate to see, but there wasn't anything graphic in it, however. But we were able to see some more CCTV footage of Aleppo right here. That's the sound of a Russian bomb coming in and slamming dead on into the city.
The Russians were losing, so they said, let's wipe out some civilians.
That's always their go-to, says the Russian commander. It's like, why do they always do that? Like, like, we're laughing at it because it's ridiculous, but it's sickening to think every single time the Russians don't do well at something, they just bomb civilians. Like, it's incredibly bizarre how they do that as a reoccurring trend. It's almost like they want to be known as evil folks out there in the world, because there's no other way that you could think of them like that. Like the United States, back when we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, would generally try and not inflict casualties on civilians. There were casualties that were inflicted, but it was only in instances where we didn't really have any other choice. Still, the Russians will do it just to do it. In one of the clips that we couldn't even show y'all there because it was marked as not really good to show, they literally just bombed a busy city square. It didn't even have any SSG forces in it. It was just a whole bunch of people driving through the square, and they dropped a bomb right on top of them. I don't know why they do this.
The Russians are just butchers, man. Like, anytime they get caught in a corner and they don't know what to do, they do just, like, start launching attacks on civilians, because I really don't think they know exactly where the rebels are specifically hiding out. So they basically, I'm sure that Putin told somebody, we need results and we need them now. And the commanders not knowing what the hell they're doing, and also the top general of Syria's Russia command being just fired a day ago, they don't really know what to do. So they're just going to start lobbing missiles into Aleppo. And of course, what's the one thing they're going to hit first is going to be civilians. And that's what they're doing.
Yeah, it's an incredibly unfortunate thing to see, and we were able to hear that there was a little bit more footage of the drones. Well, actually, there was some information that some Iranian-made drones were in air bases that were captured near Aleppo. So that's very interesting here. Not really much more on that. But speaking of Iranian support to Syria, we were able to hear that the Islamic Republic's government stated today that they were going to be providing all kinds of support to Syria, to the Assad regime, to try and help them out. Also, Assad looks like a dork. I've never really looked at him that much for that long, but Assad really does have that dork look to him. You know what I mean, Matthew?
He kind of does. He kind of has, he's oddly skinny, like for a dictator, very, very skinny. And also, like, I don't know if his pants are really fitting properly, just as a side note. And also, that tie is tied very thick up there at the top of it. But who's he sitting with right here? Is this the Iranian foreign minister?
I believe it is.
Okay, so they're talking, of course. So where was this? He's actually in Damascus, like Bashar is.
We don't know if this picture was taken today. We believe this is an older picture that was being put up by the poster just to kind of give an idea of what happened or what the statement's about. But I do not believe that Assad is in Damascus at the moment. We're still, according to our information, believing that he is in Moscow at the time with his family. Although that might end up changing in the future. But for now, we still understand he is in Russia. But moving on from that and back into the area of Syria and outside of Aleppo, we did get to see that the Iranians immediately tried try to make right on their promise to the Syrian government by providing some very important support to the Syrian government. They flew an aircraft straight from Iran, through Iraq, and straight to Damascus. And when the aircraft was getting close to Damascus, they were met with a warm, kind reception of Israeli aircraft that immediately warned to turn around or they will shoot the aircraft down. The aircraft then turned around and flew right back to Iran, and none of the supplies that were supposed to be given to the Syrians were given to the Syrians, and so they will continue to suffer. Syria suffers. Very unfortunate thing. Assad has wept. We also were able to hear that apparently some rebels are announcing a mass mobilization in the south of Syria, possibly to start propping up some cells that have been existing in this area for a while, to start uprisings and to also tie up more Syrian military abilities away from the front lines and further south in the country, where they will be able to buy the main force towards Hama some more time to be able to advance against a weaker Syrian armed force. Still, it seems as though a lot of people have been asking some questions here, because we have been able to hear that near Al Mayadeen, a U.S. airstrike was conducted today with some A-10 Warthogs, a legendary aircraft as a matter of fact, and some assets were targeted, including a communication center, barracks, and other military sites. Significant casualties are being reported, and ambulances and emergency vehicles are heading to the strike locations. But it does beg the question, is the United States involved in this Syrian overthrow of the Syrian Republic for the large part? Is the United States really the ones that are behind the fall of the Syrian Arab Republic? Many people have many questions, and it seems as though a lot of people are believing that the good old United States of America, the Grand Republic, may be behind this whole thing in some way, shape, or form. But Matthew, what are people thinking, and what are you thinking as well?
All right, so this is a question that many people have been wanting an answer to. Was the United States involved in sparking the rebels to action to actually perform a coup on the Assad regime inside of Syria? What exactly sparked it, and who is funding the rebel forces? That's what we don't know right now for a fact. But 58% said that this does prove that the U.S. is covertly involved after these airstrikes were launched today by U.S. forces on certain sites in Syria, while 16% said there's no way to really know right now, and 13% said the USA is not involved in the coup whatsoever. And I would say that I'm leaning toward the option that the U.S. probably is covertly involved, because being perfectly honest, there's usually not much in the Middle East that actually happens without the U.S. being somewhat involved in it. They may not be the main person orchestrating this. It could just be the rebels deciding this is the perfect time to take charge. But I think the U.S. probably provided a little bit of assistance or support in the background to spark them to action. So I am leaning toward the 58%. Of course, there is no concrete evidence of that right now. We're basically making assumptions, but I would tend to believe that that's a logical assumption. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that the United States is most likely involved in supporting the SDF. I would have to say that we're probably not involved in supporting the SSG. They just ideologically do not really align with us at the moment. And while they are, of course, bringing down a Russian-controlled regime inside of Syria for the large part of the moment, I just do not think that the United States would want to back them up. If anyone would have been able to conduct this offensive advance, the SDF could have done it as easily if we provided them with enough support and efforts to be able to push the Russians and the Syrians out of Aleppo. So if any reason would be given for what's happening down here with the SSG, I would say that it would not be American support. It may be Turkish support, or it may just be that they're finally kicking off their offensive plans that they've been working on for years at this point, because the conflict pretty much did go inert for years and is finally being brought back to life this much later on. So with that in mind, I would have to say, in my honest opinion, that it is most likely not really U.S. involvement that is helping out the SSG. The SDF, sure, because we're actually seeing that today with proof, but not the SSG. And so I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. But still, the Syrian conflict does continue to rage on, and rage it does. It's wonderful to see that the Syrian government and the Russian Federation is going into absolute panic mode, because they just simply they just will not be able to really hold on to the country that well. The collapse of everything, including Hama and Aleppo, is a serious loss. And I want to make that a little bit more clear, because Aleppo is the second largest city in Syria, and Hama, really quickly, if I am correct, and I just typed in ham with 2 A's, but Hama right here is, one second here, I want to make sure that we're getting this correct. It's one of the 4 largest cities in Syria, and it's the 4th largest one. So right now, the Syrian government has lost the second largest city in Syria, which was Aleppo, and they've also lost the fourth largest city in Syria, which is Hama. So that means that they only control the first and third largest cities in Syria. The other two out of the four are currently controlled by rebel forces. That isn't good. You just can't put that out there any other way. That is not good, especially to have lost such major population centers in pretty much a single 1 week period. That's not looking great at all. It's showing that their country is collapsing, and not only that, it's showing that their army is so stretched thin, they couldn't even defend such a majorly important strategic site as the city of Aleppo. There is a lot to be said for a country having access to just raw manpower, and in a civil war like Syria is involved in, it really doesn't matter about industrial capability. It really just more so matters about manpower availability. And considering that they just lost about, and let me make sure the population of Hama here, considering that they just lost 3 million manpower in a single week, just in being lost to pretty much rebel forces, it's not looking good for them. There's no other way to put it. Also, let me make sure to check on the population of Syria. Population of Syria. Oh, yes. It appears that they had a little bit of a decrease for a while here on their graph. You can see it right here. It happened right at 2011 and 2012. It dropped down pretty rapidly, but right now they're up to around 23.2 million people. So that means that just in the major city losses alone, a significant portion, most likely around 20% or 25% of the Syrian population just fell directly into SSG hands and SDF hands. With that, I hope that kind of covers why this isn't really going well for them in the big picture, but it does appear that the SAA is fighting for its life right now and attempting to stabilize the situation at Hama. And considering how chaotic the fighting is in this area, I will not be able to tell y'all what will be happening. Crystal balling would be literally impossible in this scenario, so we will just have to wait and see if the SSG somehow breaks through and keeps advancing towards Homs, or if the SAA somehow stops the SSG at Hama and keeps them there. Either way, things did not go well for the Syrians, and things are looking incredibly rough at the moment. But moving on out of this area, it's time for us to start moving on up and towards Ukraine, because we still have a lot of news to cover up here, and we also have a little bit on the way in Georgia. Just one little video, but still showing y'all that things are happening in Georgia. But before we get to that, though, I do want to make sure that we speak one more time about what's going on in the Middle East, or at least a question that's been asked to all of y'all. It's a real question, a long-lasting question, and it appears that many people are saying that Iran says it's ready to provide all support to Assad's regime amidst the rebel coup, and a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts. And it appears that Iran is only going to provide aid to Assad, maybe material aid, or maybe they'll get fully involved. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so after we did get word apparently from Iran that they are ready to provide all support to Assad's regime, what are your thoughts about how Iran is going to proceed? So 43% said Iran is only going to provide aid to Assad, meaning military aid or humanitarian aid, while 36% said Iran will get fully involved, and 13% said Iran will stay out of the fight. And on this one, it's a little bit tricky because Iran is a rogue state, so to predict what they're going to do is always a little bit difficult. I would tend to believe that they might stay out of the fight and simply send aid to Assad. That's probably what they'll end up doing, but you never really know with Iran. They could decide to actually get involved in the conflict, even though that seems unlikely. But also at the same time, something that does indicate Iran's not really quite ready for that just yet is their cargo plane did get intercepted by Israeli jets today, and it turned away after the jets said, no, you're not going to land here in Syria. The cargo jet simply turned away and left. So there was no resistance being put up to that interception, and that was a little bit telling that Iran's not really ready to get in the fight right this second, but they could be later on down the road. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta give a massive shout out to the anonymous donor who just threw in a $209 donation to the fundraiser. Dang!
Nice.
Because we are now up to, and let me make sure, $2,225 at this moment. We are only $775 away from the fundraiser goal. And I know that we're going to make it. Because the Lee Spring Army has never missed a fundraiser goal in its history. And while the war may be 3 years on, the Elite Spring Army is still kicking and fighting even to this day. But beyond that, I would have to say the Iranians are probably only going to provide military aid to the Syrians because they're probably sitting around in fear of what may be coming next from the United States and Israel, considering that that conflict hasn't really died off. It's more so just in a bit of a dormant phase, but it does appear that the Israelis still have some sort of a plan in the future to strike at Iran, at least according to their publicized statements that were made a couple of months ago. But I think that material support may be the only thing they would try and provide, and if that's thwarted like it was today, then they won't be providing anything. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. But before we move on to the next bit of news up in Georgia and then up in Ukraine, I do want to say that tonight is going to be a night to remember, folks, because many of y'all know that there's an ancient channel right that has existed on this channel for a very long time, for years as a matter of fact, and considering that the Lee Spring Army is still kicking and fighting to this day, I thought we would call it out just to remember old time's sake, back when the fundraisers were stuff of legend and we were raising tens of thousands of dollars every single weekend in support of Ukraine. It is time for a general order. Order!
I'm not going to be lectured by a junior minister.
Dodgy Dave, just something like that. But beyond that,
You are ejected, sir.
But the general order is now in effect. If you have $5 to give to the fundraiser and you consider yourself to be a part of the LSA, then throw it in right now. That's if you have it. You don't have to if you don't. But nevertheless, we are going to get this thing over the $3,000 goal, or the Lee Spring Army will maybe not last long. Who knows? But still,
Whoa, Jack. Whoa.
I'm just saying, folks, we've never missed a fundraiser goal, and I know that we're not tonight, but still, let us hit this thing well over the fundraiser goal. I didn't really know where to go with that, and I was like, I don't even know what to say, so I just threw that one out there.
You took it right to level 10 right then. I was like, damn, where's he going with this? It's like, you go issue an ultimatum. If we don't reach this, we might not last much longer. It's like, damn.
But hey, we have to hit that $3,000 goal, and the general order is now in effect, and we are blowing this thing out of the water. We are already up to $2.6 thousand. Absolutely crazy.
We're going fast, man. We're going very fast right now. Look at them. They're rolling in like crazy, man. They're rolling in like the Russian bombs on the unfortunate civilians. Of course, it's not a laughing matter, but of course the Russians do that quite a bit. But man, they are rolling in. Look at that, man. 555. Bing, 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 bing.
Bing chilling. But nevertheless, it is coming in crazily, and I have a feeling that we're about to pass that fundraiser goal here at any minute now, and it will be absolutely incredible when we do, because the Lee Spring Army will have once again defeated another fundraiser once again and gotten us well over the goal. And so, while that is going on and that general order is still going ham, it is time for us to go and answer a couple of questions, because I understand that we have quite a lot of questions, Matthew, long-lasting questions. Oh my goodness, 333. We hit the goal.
Hey, we hit the goal. We hit the goal. Yeah, Jugga, Igor. I'm telling you what, man, we hit it, man. It's what, about 50 minutes into the stream, and we've already smashed the goal. I knew the LSA was not going to drop the ball on tonight's fundraiser stream. The enforcer was worried for a minute. He was thinking, oh man, is it going to make it? And I was holding out hope. I said, we will make it, and we sure did make it. And you know, it's weird, enforcer, the roles have flip-flopped. It used to be me saying, I'm not sure if we're going to make it. I'm not sure if we're going to make it. And now I'm the one like, oh, I know we're going to make it tonight, and we sure did once again. And huge shout out to everybody for helping us to hit that goal.
And I gotta say, it is wonderful to see that we've hit another fundraiser goal. It's really crazy to think that over the entirety of the channel's history, we have never missed a fundraiser goal, and hopefully never will. The day we do, it's going to be a pretty sad day, but then that means we just lower the fundraiser goals. But beyond that, I gotta say a big shout out to everyone who supported the fundraiser so far. Y'all are the folks who help Ukraine to continue to be able to focus its efforts on the front line while we try and take care of some of the humanitarian stuff behind the lines. And each and every one of y'all is playing a massive role in shaping up American and Western interests around the globe and helping out in any and every way that we can as a collective Lee Spring Army to help bring victory to the Western world. And so, Matthew, can we hear at least some of the names of the top donors who helped us to try and bring the Western world to victory by our own means?
So, yes, sir. Let's get some of those top donors of the night. And first up, the largest one of the night is from, of course, Hal Rose, who throws in that $333 donation. And for some reason, YouTube always robs you of your credit. They don't put your name attached with it for some reason. But huge shout out to Hal Rose, that massive support to the fundraiser. Also, huge shout out to the Enforcer as well for that 100, along with Hal Rose once again, who threw in another $100 donation. Then we had one from LSA Rocks, as well as BC Skyman. And then we had a 50 from Greg Carrier, as well as Dad Good, Rad Doctor, Leora Abigail, as well as Alex, who threw in a 50, along with John Gamber, of course, as well, Axel K, along with Tanner Thornton, Mike Smith, Michael Activista, Krankenstein, and also K Dub Janky. And huge shout out to everybody tonight. And of course, we say this every single Sunday. We're only able to call out the big ones because otherwise we'd be here literally all night calling out all the donors of the night. But huge shout out to everybody for helping us to smash the goal. And we're sitting at $3,438 raised of the $3,000 goal, which is a tremendous feat yet again. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say, it is absolutely incredible that everyone was able to support this fundraiser tonight as incredibly as they have. It is a wonderful thing to know that we've continued to surpass fundraiser goals time and time again for years now, and it's thanks to each and every one of y'all that is possible. I've got to give y'all a massive thanks and a huge round of appreciation to the folks we were able to call out and all the folks that we weren't able to, because all of y'all combined helped to make this thing possible day in and day out. I've got to thank y'all incredibly for helping to support this fundraiser tonight, because all of that support, 100% of it, is going directly to Nova Ukraine and helping them out in continuing to take care of Ukrainian citizens who are behind the lines and trying to make sure to survive in some way, shape, or form. And I gotta say that I hope that does address that incredibly well and the best we can. And Matthew, I understand that we also have a couple of questions to answer as well.
So we sure do. And our first live chat question tonight is going to go to Judy from the live chat, who said, do you think that Putin is trying to get more men, is for him to send them to Syria?
I do not think so. I think the Syrian conflict is a bit on the back burner. It's something really akin to the United States supporting Ukraine. The Russians do that a little bit more directly, but still most of their support is more material than it is physical. So I would have to say he's probably trying to conscript more forces because the Russian army is still taking incredibly high losses in Ukraine, and they're most likely trying to sustain the size of their armed forces as in pertainment to the Ukraine war only and not in Syria. And so I hope that does address that fairly well, at least the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next one here is going to go to Judy once again from the live chat, who said, do you think Iran will step up attacks on U.S. bases?
I'm not really sure. They really haven't attacked U.S. bases in the past. It's always been some sort of a proxy group of theirs, or maybe even a almost unaffiliated group that's always attacked U.S. bases in the past in the Middle East. But I do not believe that they're going to be ramping up attacks against American bases, specifically for the fact that there is a change of hands that's about to be happening very soon in the U.S. government. And while the let me see how to describe this. While some people believe that things are going to change, they will, and we generally believe that the United States is going to be a lot more hostile and aggressive towards the Islamic Republic of Iran than it is currently. And so if they attack a U.S. base, it's highly likely they may end up getting some sort of a large armed response in return, possibly for that reason. But I hope that addresses that fairly well, at least the best I can in my opinion. But before we move on to the next one, I saw someone say, someone said, Kursk is going really bad for Ukraine. Oh, really? How so? I just saw someone say that. We're about to get to that here in a minute. How's he going badly? I want to know, because I cover the news every day, and I do not see it going terribly. But nevertheless, I hope that does address that just one-off really well. A little bit of a weird thing to say, and really no backup at all. That's like one of those headlines you see on Twitter that has, like, no substance. But anyways, with that, we have one last question to cover before we get into the rest of the news. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and that last question here of the segment is going to go to Sloth, who says, is there any factions in Syria worthy enough to form a government?
The SDF would be the one, in my opinion, because the thing is, a lot of people don't get this. That's a really, let me think how to say it. It's a really idealistic way of thinking that we can go, I don't really like any of these, so let's just wipe them out and have a new one. Like, we really can't, and a lot of people don't really get that when folks talk about foreign policy. The United States really can only back or condemn the parties that exist. We can't make one. Like, so as far as it goes, the United States, as far as statecraft works outside of the United States, has to pick someone. And so we have to pick the faction out of the three that is the most aligned with us. So when we look at those, we have three options. We have the side that the Russians are backing up, which is inherently against our interests. So that is an absolutely certain no and off the table. So we are not backing the Syrian Arab Republic. Then there is the SSG, which is the predecessor to Al-Qaeda, in a sense, in this area, and is supported and backed by the Turks, and the Turks really aren't pro-Western either, and also their ideology is an incredibly anti-Western at large, and so for that reason, they're largely off the table. They don't really fill enough of the check boxes for us to back them up and support them, or want them for a government in the future. Sure, they could be used at the time to be able to try and deal with the Syrian Arab Republic and crush Russian influence in the Middle East, but we really don't want them to be around for that much longer because they are a very questionable form of government. Then, the third faction is the Syrian Democratic Forces. According to the statements that they make, and that's what we can work off of, they are a secular, democratically elected force that preserves human rights within their region. That also, they are wanting to create, when they win, a Syrian republic that has a federal system, so that way the states that make up Syria, or whatever they're going to call their states, are able to have some autonomy and make laws specifically supporting the kind of cultures or peoples that live within those regions of Syria, but at the same time, they will have an overall federal government that will be able to assure the basic maintenance and function of the nation at large, and also ensure that there is a basic modicum of rights that are established for every group in Syria, regardless of what area they're in. Based out of the three, the Syrian Democratic Forces tick all of the right boxes as far as us supporting one side or another. And some people say, and I see some people saying this, right, in all caps, but that's how it works, because, like, I don't know if people know this, but Taiwan and South Korea were dictatorships, and pretty oppressive ones, when we supported them in the Korean War, and when we supported Taiwan from the 1950s all the way up until about the 1980s. They were oppressive dictatorships. No one knows that. I guess people are maybe don't read a lot on that kind of stuff, but we supported them and they eventually turned into something good. But what's most important is who in the world is aligned with us the most. And out of the three factions, the SDF is, and so for that reason, the United States wants to see them take over and create a new Syrian republic that actually will be a Syrian federal republic of some sort. So with that in mind, I would say out of the three factions, this one, if we want to say it's worthy, would be worthy to be the controller of Syria, at least according to what they say their key values are. Because they're not the ones saying, we want to continue to genocide our people like Assad. They're also not the ones saying, we will enact Sharia law and become an oppressive dictatorship if we take charge like the SSG. They're saying they're going to allow people to do what they generally want and have a democratically elected government. And that, out of the three, is the best option that we have at the moment. Then I got to make this clear again, because a lot of people, I don't know if they get it or not. We cannot choose to just not support anyone. That's kind of the thing. Kind of like how every 4 years when presidents are being elected, when you say, oh, I don't like either of the candidates, I'm not voting. You're going to get one or the other anyway, so it'd be better just to get involved and try and see if you can get an outcome that would be marginally better for you than the other. That's really how it works. That's something that I don't really think a lot of people understand, because a lot of people think that it works like television. Like, if you just don't like television channels, you can just go to YouTube or something like that. Though the real world and foreign policy never will work like that, because it makes no real sense. Because America is in the Middle East right now, and we have a heavy stake involved in the Middle East currently to keep it under our control and not under the control of our adversaries. So we have to be able to take advantage of the Syrian situation while it exists right now, and try and mold it to our advantage, if there is a way to do that at all. And so with that in mind, we have to go in and we have to pick the group that is the best, or the best of the worst, and then support them and hope that it ends up turning out better in the long run. A lot of people do not know this either, but we did create a functioning democracy in Iraq. A lot of people always say, oh, Iraq and Afghanistan, what was it for? Especially after the Taliban took over Afghanistan again. But a lot of people don't even remember we actually created a real functioning democracy inside of Iraq. It's there now. Like, they actually have a functioning democratic form of government. And so if we go in there, there is a chance sometimes that we will be able to create some sort of a more successful functioning government that is more so American or Western leaning, which is inherently in our benefit. In some other instances, it will end up in failure, like with Afghanistan. But that was due to a whole bunch of failures on the United States side of seeing that a democratic form of government would never work in Afghanistan. That really was the truth. We should have installed, if we're speaking frankly here, we should have installed some sort of a military junta or a dictatorship that would have gradually formed into a democracy over time, but trying to immediately go in and throw in a federal republic democratic template onto Afghanistan, which has never had anything close to that, was going to be a disaster from the start. The only thing that's ever really worked in Afghanistan historically is some sort of a ultra-centralized dictatorship, and it really takes a lot of cultural evolution, which would take decades, and not something that could be achieved in less than 20 years, to be able to create a functioning democratic society. But you have to start with something, so a dictatorship probably would have been better, and then you could slowly mold it into a democracy over time, just like we did with South Korea and Taiwan, which were dictatorships when we allied with them, and slowly over time, due to their exposure to the United States, the civilian populations eventually overthrew the dictatorships and created their own democratic governance. So that's
now on the Iraq situation here. You're saying that's a democratic country there, but I just saw an article earlier today. I was trying to find it real quick. It's from Geo Insider on Twitter. They said that a telephone talk was held between the Iranian president Massoud and the Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed, and they were talking about regional developments specifically in Syria. So, to me, to my understanding, I thought Iraq was pretty much not really necessarily directly aligned with Iran, but they were kind of like a little bit on the fence when it comes to Iran, to my understanding.
They're a little on the fence, but whenever it comes to controlling their oil resources, they lean heavily towards the American side, which is kind of the important part, because just because we install a democracy doesn't mean that they're always going to be, hardline what we want. Iraq really is, it kind of does their own thing in a sense, but it doesn't really matter because they never ally with the Iranians or anyone else. They always lean far enough towards the American side that we know that they're American aligned, but at the same time, they also do not want Iranian rockets raining down in their country, so they kind of try and play a more neutral middle line approach at most diplomatic incidents, so they don't end up being the target of an Iranian attack. Because Iran, go ahead.
And also, by the way, isn't Iraq basically allowing, they're not necessarily hosting, but they are allowing some of the proxy groups to operate from within their soil? It's kind of like the same thing as Lebanon. Lebanon, the government may or may not be complicit in letting the terrorists operate from there, but nonetheless, the terrorists are there and the Lebanese were not pushing them out. So, to my knowledge, the same thing's happening in Iraq. And I know that Iraq does have some diplomatic ties with the United States because, of course, there's a bit of a trade thing there, also a key partner issue. But at the same time, it kind of seems like they're a little bit complicit in what's going on as well between Israel and the proxies.
Kind of, sort of, like really how it works though, at least in Iraq, is that the central government has very strong control over the majority of population centers in the Tigris and Euphrates River Valley area from Baghdad to Basra, but outside of that, government control is fairly loose. There's like this little bit of control up at Erbil that they have, but that's generally also under a semi-autonomous Kurdish region control, sort of, so then that falls under the administration of the Kurds, and that area in northern Iraq is pretty much a free-for-all. Like, the Kurds don't really have that much control of the area as their semi-autonomous form, and the Iraqis don't really have enough of an ability to exert control over that area, so it ends up being a pretty seedy place where questionable groups pop up. That's why you usually see that most attacks that are conducted against U.S. forces in the Middle East from inside of Iraq usually are conducted somewhere in northern Iraq, that north of the Euphrates River, somewhere inside the semi-autonomous region of Kurdish Iraq. I think that's what it's actually called. But that's what we kind of see. The Iraqi government isn't really like the Lebanese government, where these terrorist factions are literally kind of like installed in the government, and they're in some sense they're not in the central government. It's just that their central government is so weak, especially in pertainment to northern Iraq. There's really no way to exert complete control over that area, and still they haven't really recovered from the whole deal with the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, which left massive power vacuums throughout most of western Iraq, and so they still struggle with trying to keep some sort of legal authority or jurisdiction over these areas, because they're pretty much lawless land still, and they've never really been able to have the power, the authority, or the cohesion of the central government to be able to go out there and deal with it.
Yeah, to me though, I would say that Iraq's it is of course it is diplomatically aligned with the West, the United States specifically, to an extent, but it seems like Iraq's always hanging on by a thread. Like their government is rather weak, and of course in the Middle East, no government in the Middle East is really like a strong government, because there's always a lot of factions and infighting and stuff like that, and the Middle East is notoriously chaotic. But I don't think Iraq's really like a strong like U.S. ally or something like that. It's kind of just mid.
It's kind of mid, but it still leans in our direction and it counts. You know, like it's better for them to be
True.
slightly leaning in our direction than be, say, the Republic of Syria, which literally leans all the way so Russian, they literally go on vacations to Russia.
Now that is true. That is true. I agree with that.
Yeah, so it's like, if you weigh it out, it's like, what's better, having a lukewarm American ally or having no American ally? And of course, always having a lukewarm American ally is still better than having no American ally. So that's kind of what we're game planning in Syria, and so for that reason the SDF would still be the best faction of the three to be able to try and take control. But with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. Matthew, was that the last question of that segment, or was it the second to last one?
So that was 1, 2, 3. That was the last one of the segment.
And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into Georgia, where we were able to see that Molotovs are now being thrown at the cops. It's chaos in the streets.
Oh wow, a real Molotov.
Man, I mean, like, they're really getting kind of, like, busy out there, really. But moving on from that, there's really not much more to comment on that. It's just still unrest in Georgia. We're now going to be moving on into the Kursk Oblast, where we were able to see that the Russians attempted another attack on Ukrainian lines today, and once again took incredibly high losses. We were also able to hear that someone was racing, apparently, at the beginning of that song. We had to mute it.
I was racing.
But still, we could see them slamming into an APC, dead on the nail. And we could see that the clip ended right there, but still showing us that they knocked out a single MTLB. Meanwhile, we also got to see them hitting the Russians a little bit more. Apparently, that one's a little spicy. But we were also able to see some Russians getting hit here as well by a Raven that apparently likes jelly.
But they zoomed in on that Raven like an office edit.
Man, that Raven do love that strawberry jam. And we see all these
destruction, man, up and down the street, just destruction everywhere.
Also like how the Ukrainians always use the Mickey Mouse crosshairs on their drone controls. You gotta appreciate that.
Gotta love it.
And there they go.
Also, they also found about the 360 feature on the like the editor or something. They have the BMP or whatever that is flipping around in a circle.
Man, that Movavi 360 edit, really, really slick. Oh, and there they go. They're running for the hills. Oh, that guy tripped. Now we see them hitting another BTR. And we see them finally getting the drone into the hatch right there. It falls in and explodes, destroying the BTR-82. Goodness. I would like to give a huge thanks for Anthony Studebaker yelling at us that he's not interested in Syria. A big thank you so much. We'll keep that in mind as we once again survey what we'll be covering in the world news segment, and reminding ourselves that it's not exactly world news, it's Anthony Studebaker news, and we'll only cover what Anthony Studebaker wants.
Man, Anthony, he's the CEO, man. We answering to Anthony now.
In this house, we only listen to what Anthony wants. So screw everyone else who wants world news. We're only going to cover Anthony Studebaker news.
One enforcer said, I think I would like a t-shirt on the merch store. I said, let me call up Anthony and check with him. And we said, I think we're going to put out a video today. I'm going to cover Syria. I said, call up Anthony, let's check. They said, the Russians want to bomb something right here on Ukraine's side right here. They want to do that. Let's call up Anthony and check.
Man, I need to go and take some take some time off from work. Let me call up Anthony and make sure that's good with him.
Man, I might need a snack during the speech break. Let me call up Anthony and make sure that's all right.
By the way, Anthony, if you could send your phone number over to us over email, we would like to make sure to have some new connections with our brand new CEO. Thank you so much for running Enforcer Media, the partnership. But moving on from that, we were also able to see the Ukrainian 42nd Mechanized Brigade repelling a Russian offensive in the area as well. Check this out.
Can the Ukrainians repel this offensive? I don't know. Let's call up Anthony and find out.
That's one hell of an explosion, but I can't make a comment on it as we have not had an approval from Anthony Studebaker yet to make a comment.
Uh-oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I'm getting a call. Hello? Oh, it's Anthony. He gave us the go-ahead, the green light. We're good to go.
Okay, good. That was one hell of an explosion. Oh, my God.
Damn. Did they have permission for that?
I don't know. Let's call up Anthony.
Good point.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. Like this one right here is kind of like one of those like comedian things. You know, when someone heckles a comedian or something like that, and then they're like, "Oh, they're gonna single that person out. They're about to get it roasted now." Man, Anthony got that. We rarely ever do this, by the way, but I don't know. For some reason, that one from Anthony, like, with him putting in all caps and shouting it like he's the only one in here that wants to hear the news, like catered just to him, while there's literally like 10,000 people here listening. It's just crazy.
Well, it's so entitled sounding the way it came in. It was like a Karen comment. That's why I was like focusing on it, because I was like, how rude. It's like, we put all this effort and time into getting this segment going, so that way you could just act like your sweet little princess self can't handle the news segment. It's like, it's world news. Like, it's like, at this point, like, it's kind of like real news. If you don't like this segment, come back later when the Ukraine war segment's on, but we're covering a different thing in the world right now. It's really rude to act like the whole show revolves around you, and really entitled considering there's literally almost 11,000 people here right now. But moving on from that, we were able to see the Ukrainian Special Forces on a special mission. We're going to be muting that, but it's foggy out there.
Someone said, not good to take the piss out of followers if you want to keep them. Listen, man, we're doing this for the entire LSA, not just for Anthony. I'm not calling him up for permission when we decide to cover something.
And we're going to be not showing that clip right there. It looked fine to me earlier. Apparently, it's not that much so. But we were able to see the Russian casualty report. Holy moly!
Holy moly, man. The losses are staying high on the troop losses. The 5th highest, according to Ms. Disa, the keeper of the records. But 2 more Bobcat skid steers. That is tremendous to see. And also, the troop losses, they keep on going high. But, the reason why they haven't crossed over 2,000 ever since the last time is because they never called up Anthony to get that permission. But Enforcer, tell us more.
And really quickly, I do have to make sure that Miss Deese's record keeping is correct. We're going to call up Anthony really quickly and make sure. So give me just a second, everyone. I'm going to quickly, hang on, everyone. We got to call up Anthony here. Let me just make sure that we're calling up Anthony. Hang on, everyone. So I want y'all to hear the ringtone so that way y'all know we are calling up Anthony. So we are calling him up right now. Hang on, everyone.
Man, you're actually calling my cell phone, man. Like, it's coming across my map. This doesn't say Anthony, it says Andrew on it.
But it was Anthony approved. I got the confirmation. We got the green light there. But nevertheless, 1,730 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours. A very impressive number. We were also able to see that 14 APCs were destroyed as well, including 76 supply trucks, 6 main battle tanks, 14 artillery pieces, 11 drones, 1 cruise missile, and 2 Bobcat skid steers. Overall, it does appear that it was a very impressive day, and it looks as though the Russian Federation is most likely in dire straits, and we will be trying to keep an eye on the exact condition of the Russian armed forces, although at this point it largely remains consistent that it's in bad shape, but it's not in a shape where it's pretty much entirely collapsing overnight. But moving on from that and on into the Vovchansk area, we were also able to see some Russian vehicles burning from some Ukrainian FPV drone attacks, and we were able to see right here that the Ukrainian state border guards were the ones cooking up some Russian tanks. They didn't have papers, so they decided to cook up their papers, whatever papers they had. You have a PDF, that thing's gone. You got a copy of files, that thing's gone. You got a tank and its orders are inside of it, believe it or not, that's also gone as well. And we now see them dropping another bomblet on a T-80. And Julian Rash, that is an honestly appropriate statement. I thank you so much for having respect for our CEO, because Julian Rash said, don't care what you say, I'm going to wait for Anthony's word on that. And I would have to be honest with you, I would not go against the CEO of this channel, and so you would need to make sure to check up with Anthony on that.
Yo, Anthony, did you do it? I did it.
Yo, Anthony, I did it. But anyways, moving on from that and on out of this area, it's now time for us to move on into the area just north of the town of Vovchansk, where we were able to see more Russians getting plastered. Oh, dead on the nail. And hold up. Wait a minute, we've seen this before. Hang on, we've seen it. It's a duplicate. I don't know what was going on tonight with the news publications. I don't know. But moving on from that and into the Kupiansk area, we were able to see a Russian howitzer get destroyed by the 14th Mechanized Brigade, which is still in the northern area near Kupiansk.
Someone said Rocky jokes are too far. I mean, come on, man. Come on.
Man. Comedy's dead. Quite literally, man. Like, you can't make a joke about anything without someone writing in. But we joke, we kid, and we will not stop. Oh! And that Russian artillery piece, though, will be stopping today. And so with that, that's the end of the clip right there. Very nice to see. And we're now going to be moving on a little bit further down the line, where we got to see a mortar of the 24th Separate Mechanized Brigade firing at the Russians. Really cool picture. It's bright and fiery, and for that reason, I just thought it looked cool, and we were going to include the picture. Really no other reason than that. However, moving on down from the Kupiansk front and towards Tversk, we were able to see some actions of the 54th Mechanized Brigade's tanks today near the area, as they recovered a damaged tank on the front line.
I like that guy just standing up on the turret like that. That's the way to do it. It's like the Southern way. If the Southerners had a tank, they'd be riding it like that.
Hey, go ahead and put it forward, Cletus. It's like,
come on, floor it. I mean, put the throttle down. Open her up.
Man, I'm telling you, it really does give you that kind of a feel. And we also were able to see them driving over a car for funsies today, too. Enchilada. Oh, блядь, don't run the lado over, блядь. No. And so with that's the end of the clip right there. Very sad to see the loss of Lada, but still, mostly they were having fun. And of course, the number one rule of war is to have fun. But moving on from that and down towards the Touretsk front, we also get to see some closer fighting in this area. Done by the Ukrainian police, of course.
What is that animal on that flag, though, by the way? What is that?
I don't know. I don't know. It's the critter.
It's like a dragon dog or something like that. It's like I'm trying my damnedest to figure out what this is. It's like it's got a snout. So that's a big telltale sign. But what the hell is that?
Should we call Anthony and ask him?
Yo, Anthony, can I it does sound like the Rocky joke, though. Yo, Anthony, can I take a look at this flag? What's it mean, Anthony? Tell me.
Oh, man. And he's still here. I just checked. He's still here in the chat. He just went dead silent. Like, we need input from the CEO, though. Come on. We need some input. But still, we can see them right here, showing that they took a Russian prisoner. And when you see the Russian prisoner talking, sadly we can't hear anything he's saying because there's copyrighted music playing over it. But that's the end of the clip. Hey, not bad. And I don't know what that animal is, man. You got a good point. It kind of looks like a Chinese dragon. That's at least what I'm getting.
It kind of does. Yeah, a little bit like a dragon, but at the same time, kind of like a dog or something. It makes no sense why they pick a dragon like that. Especially like that type of dragon. But I guess they pick what they pick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess sometimes the symbology is just whatever it is. But moving on from that, we then got to see near the Pokrovsk area, apparently another clip that's just a little too spicy for human consumption. I gotta be honest with y'all, when I watched these clips earlier in the day, they just don't rub me that way. Maybe because I just have seen so much of the war, uncensored. Nothing really is that jarring to me anymore, but apparently it's jarring, so we can't show what happened in the Pokrovsk front today. But moving on down towards Volodar, we were able to see some Russians getting hit in this area by the 72nd Mechanized Brigade. We're able to see them getting slammed down there, and the truck is now ablaze.
Someone said it's a Charizard. I don't know what let me pull up.
Isn't that like a Pokemon?
Charizard. It might be a Charizard. I've never even heard of that. Let's see. Man, I don't know. Looking a little closer to this Charizard thing, I'm not sure if this is it. I mean, it has some resemblance to it, but this looks a little bit childish. A little bit. I don't even know what this is from. Pokemon Red. Interesting.
I'm not going to lie, the fan art is nightmare fuel, so I'm not going to show that to y'all, but hey, we learn something new every day. Apparently people have a thing for the Charizard, but moving on from that into Velika Novosilka, we did get to see a Ukrainian AMX-10 on the front line. Look at it go, meep meep, little duck thing. But we love the AMX-10. It's a light tank provided by France. And it's just so cool. I think they're like one of the coolest light tanks out there just for its appearance. And it seems as though the Ukrainians still have some around down there near Velika Novosilka. But moving on from that and even further down the line, it actually takes us all the way up towards Kyiv in Ukraine, where we are able to hear that Zelensky will never accept the occupied territories as Russian.
Ми не визнаємо ці землі російськими, це суто наші землі, це суто наші люди, тимчасово окуповані частини України. Безумовно, все це повернеться, безумовно, дуже хотілося б, щоб повернулася більшість дипломатичним шляхом, щоб не були такі жертви. Я не впевнений, що Путін це розуміє, але я хочу, щоб цивілізований світ в більшості своїй це розумів. Що стосується НАТО, найкращі гарантії безпеки для нас НАТО. Економічні гарантії безпеки для нас є.
And that's the end of that little clip right there, but it still appears that he's not going to recognize the sovereignty of Russia over the occupied territories, no matter what. We have waited for official comment from Zelensky on our request for an interview on Twitter, and he told us to go check with Anthony. But nevertheless, moving on from that and on into Kyiv, it is time for us to cover the speech itself from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1012 of the war. And so, without further ado, here's the first speech on the first day of December of this year. Without further ado, speech, long-lasting speech.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Сьогодні у нас активний дипломатичний день. В Україні з візитом президент Європейської ради Антоніо Кошта, також Кая Каллас, верховний представник ЄС із закордонних справ, і Марта Кос, єврокомісар з питань розширення. Важливо, що вони прибули в Україну в перший же день початку своїх повноважень. Це новий 5-річний термін роботи європейських інституцій. Посадовці змінилися, але курс Європи залишається незмінним. Безпека і справжній мир для всіх на континенті – це головний пріоритет. І сьогодні на перемовинах ми говорили саме про це, про спільні можливості зміцнити нашу ППО, реалізувати всі вже досягнуті домовленості в оборонній підтримці, а також детально обговорили, як можемо наступного року дати більше прогресу в перемовинах з ЄС щодо вступу України. Це Дуже кропітка робота і багато в ній нюансів, але найголовніше готовність і наша, і партнерів якнайшвидше рухатись в перемовинах. Наступного року піврічні головування Польщі і Данії в Євросоюзі. І ми маємо зробити якнайбільше, щоб європейський проект був реалізований і для України, і для Молдови, і для Балканських держав. Звичайно, сьогодні приділили увагу питанню про НАТО. НАТО для України, про запрошення в Альянс, яке може фундаментально посилити Україну перед будь-якими перемовинами щодо завершення війни. І це така річ, таке посилення, яке багато в чому зможе гарантувати справедливість миру. Я вдячний всім партнерам, які з Україною в цьому питанні. Геополітична визначеність для України – це основа миру для всієї Європи. І сьогодні маємо важливий крок в Україні. Для підтримки наших людей цією зимою стартувала наша програма «Є-підтримка». 1000 гривень для наших людей в Україні. Це для кожного і кожної, для всіх, для дорослих, для дітей. В середньому кілька тисяч на сім'ю. І кошти на оплату товарів та послуг, українських товарів та послуг. Зокрема, це комунальні послуги, українські ліки, квитки на залізницю. Можна буде купити і книжки за ці гроші. Ну і звичайна програма може стати також фактично програмою національного донату, якщо спрямувати цю 1000 на підтримку волонтерів, на нашу оборону. Я вдячний всім, хто забезпечує технічну сторону програми. Уряд, Мінекономіки, Мінцифра вже за перші півдня роботи «Є-підтримки» 1 100 000 українців зробили заявки на виплату. І в тому числі майже 300 000 заявок на виплату для дітей. Тобто масштаб програми і темп реалізації хороші. Важливо, щоб уряд контролював роботу всіх систем в програмі, щоб на 100% забезпечили все, що обіцяно людям. І також уряд має представити деталі інших програм підтримки цієї зими і протягом наступного року. Слава Україні!
And Herom Slava. And with that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. And that actually moves us on into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to Anthony. But nevertheless, we have a load of stuff to talk about here in this next question segment, because we get to talk to all of y'all after we talk to Anthony. But nevertheless, we have a lot of fun stuff to do in this segment. Loads and loads of questions have come in from all of y'all, and we have once again seen that the fundraiser has been another successful night, as we have raised $3,757 in support of Ukraine through this fundraiser tonight. We have to thank each and every single one of y'all who has made that fundraiser possible and gotten into the great heights it's at right now, $700 above the fundraiser goal. Truly an incredible feat, and one that will never be topped by the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, I hope that does give you all a massive shout out once again. And Matthew, have we had any top donors in between the last segment and this one?
So yes, we have, and those top donors are Tom S., who threw in a $50 donation, along with George Gooday, who put in a $50 as well. Excuse
bless
me.
You, goodness gracious.
Man.
Oh, my.
Wow,
Get down, Mr. President.
Mind-blowing. I did not ask Anthony for permission to do that. That is a penalty. But anyways, moving on here from that.
$10,000 penalty.
$10,000. There it went right out the door, right to Anthony's pocket. Dr. Anthony III, let's see, MD, JD, CPA, etc. Jack of all trades, but a master of none. But moving on here to this top donors of the night. Once again, huge shout to Tom and George for that massive support of the fundraiser, and we appreciate it very much. And also, huge shout out to everybody else as well. But Enforcer, what say you?
I got to say that it was a great fundraiser in my opinion. Unfortunately, Anthony has demanded more. We must see that these fundraisers do climb higher. Otherwise, Anthony will take us out behind the barn and put us down. So please, everyone, please support the fundraiser more. I'm begging you. But beyond that, thank you all once again for getting the fundraiser to the incredible heights it's at. It is truly amazing. And of course, a big shout out to all of the top donors and all the folks that we couldn't call out that put in less than $50, because each and every single one of y'all do make this fundraiser possible every single weekend and help us to continue to support American and Western interests around the entirety of the globe. And so with that, I hope that gives a massive shout out to all of y'all. And meanwhile, y'all, I was wanting to bring up something because it's been on my mind the entire time. Matthew has downloaded Minecraft, and this has been news. Like, he's actually downloaded, I think, about a day or two ago, and he's been on there building houses. So, in my typical fashion, I had to go all in or go home, and so I ended up building something that Matthew's actually pretty impressed with as it is, and it's hardly even done yet. Well, you know, kind of, sort of. We don't really have a lot of time to be working on this stuff, but I am working on an amazing piece, and Matthew knows what it is. It is Washington, D.C. Union Station, this building right here.
I thought it was Los Angeles Union, or whatever that one is out there in Los Angeles.
Hell no. Dude, that one was cool until I went and saw it, and then I was like, this is not cool anymore. And also, dude, how do you mix them up, Matthew? Like, how did you do that? Because look at this one. It's a mission revival style. It's totally different.
I like them all. I like them all. But yeah, I see your point now. It's much different, but I honestly can't keep them straight, man. Like, I went in this building, obviously, when we went on our trip a while back, but if you asked me to, like, describe the building, I probably couldn't describe it that well to you. I just don't remember it that well for some reason.
Dude, I could describe it, man, like the back of my hand. Any building that we've ever been in, I can describe it to anyone. Largely because that's just me. I'm weird like that. But beyond that, though, I was building. I was doing it, and it was impressive. The Washington Union Station. And I just wanted to quickly talk about this building tonight because it truly is an amazing feat of engineering for its time. It was the first Union Station ever made in Washington, D.C. Before this, there were multiple different train stations that serviced the different companies that ran to Washington, D.C., but there wasn't one that was under a single roof. This building ended up being the one. And also, Matthew, let's see. Oh, someone put in Anthony in multiple super chats. But still very interesting. But nevertheless, it is very interesting building. And Matthew actually saw that I built the entire facade to this thing today, this area right through here. And Matthew can attest, it actually looks pretty good. I was pretty happy with it. I was honestly kind of shocked that it ended up turning out okay at all, because I thought it was going to turn out terribly. But right now, I'm working on the little vaults inside of this area right here at the main entrance, and it's almost done. So that's actually pretty cool. So maybe one day when it's done, maybe we'll put it on Patreon and show it to all of y'all or something. I don't know when that'll be. It might be in a month from now. But still, pretty cool.
Also, by the way, just to make it clear, real quick, I'm not a gamer per se. I downloaded Minecraft to test out the MacBook that I'm currently using. I want to see how far I could push it and how much the GPU could handle in it, because I really don't know what it's capable of. So I downloaded Minecraft, I downloaded Optifine, I installed shaders and resource packs to push the CPU and GPU to the limit. And it turns out that Macs actually run that stuff actually very well at really good FPS. So I was shocked because Macs are not known for being good gaming computers, but it was actually pretty good at that. Now, it can't run, you know, all your triple A game titles. I think like Call of Duty or something like that might not be compatible with Mac, or actually pretty much every other game, but at least Minecraft with the shaders works, and it actually works so good I had to build one house. But I might have to end it at that, though, because obviously I got to focus on collecting the news, and Minecraft can't distract from that, because Minecraft is a bit of a time sink, and it's very obsessive to me very quickly. So I don't know. I'm going to keep building one house and finish it at that.
It was fun though. It's just like
It was
fun. I don't know if I'll ever be able to get back to this because the time that is spent off stream on games isn't really that much. Maybe for me, it's maybe an hour or less a day. Usually after the stream, after I wrap up a couple of other things before everything rounds out. But maybe we'll end up completing this thing. Maybe we won't. I don't really know. But still, I love buildings like this. I love this kind of a style. I think it just looks amazing. Incredibly amazing. Well, long-lasting amazing. It reminds me a little bit of the Chicago World's Fair. Have y'all ever seen that before? Have y'all? Matthew, have they ever seen this before?
Chicago's World Fair? Isn't that where the hot dog man used to work?
Aw, man, they're dissing on me again. Aw, man. No, it's this place right here.
Oh, no, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah, pretty cool, isn't it? Would you believe that all of this was made out of wood and plaster?
Wooden plaster. Like plaster de Paris.
Yeah, like that kind of plaster. The whole thing was fake. It was just made for the World's Fair and then torn down afterwards. But it was so cool. Like, if I had to say there was an architectural style that I was 100% behind, it's this kind right here. It just looks so cool. Like, to me, this is peak architectural style. If I could have cities literally raised and rebuilt to house everyone, but in a really nice way, I would have the buildings rebuilt to look like what the Chicago World's Fair looked like, because it was just it's that nice. Like, this was actually what Chicago was supposed to look like in the future, because there was an actual city beautification plan that was made to where Chicago would be the Paris of the United States. But then, due to a whole bunch of reasons, no one ever followed through with that, and now we have half-baked Chicago that everyone knows today. And some people like Chicago, some people get shot and killed in Chicago, and those are the people who don't like it. But beyond that, the only part that actually was completed of the entire project was the waterfront parks right through here that actually did house the World's Fair, but since then, they've pretty much ended up becoming nothing. Also, this little area right here at the Adler Planetarium is one of the few pieces left of the World's Fair that's original, and I believe this little pier down here was also one of the original piers made for the World's Fair. But this is really the only area left of the parks that were supposed to be a part of the greater city beautification plan, but it never ended up coming into fruition, which is a very unfortunate thing, because I think Chicago truly would have been the envy of most of the modern world if it had actually been built in that kind of a style. But anyways, with that.
Oh, and also, by the way, I see some people saying, and you have a good point, like the people saying this, they said Minecraft's not a very intensive game to run for a computer, especially even a Mac. And that is true. Like Minecraft, the normal version of it is not intensive. It should run at like probably over 200 FPS on any good system. But I'm downloading the intensive shader packs. Like those really take a lot of GPU to run those, a lot of ray tracing and things like that. So that really does push. And also the resource packs, that really doesn't push it very much extra. It's just a little bit of an extra add-on, but it's really the shaders that really put it to the test. And so far, it looks like the GPU is maxing out around 80% usage when I'm running the shader packs. But I'm surprised. Like I said, the Mac runs games pretty decently well, at least for my uses. I'm not an avid gamer, so it actually has turned out to be an all-around good computer for productivity, everything else in gaming as well. So I was glad to see it.
And I was very glad to see it as well, because he was having a blast building small houses, like one of them, I think. Yeah, it was just one of them.
Just one.
Yeah, just the one. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well, at least in my opinion. And also, what is this? Man, they got the crib out here. Look at this. They got the crib lighthouse. Dude, that's one hell of a lighthouse, man.
Man, that's like haunted looking. Okay, that looks better there, but this one looks haunting right here. It's like freaking, looks like some atrocities might have happened out there.
Man, it looks like this is where they go to take people to get confessions out of them. Tell us you did the crime. I won't do it. Like, it's like, man, tell us you did. Oh my goodness. This one's even worse. Why are these called cribs?
Ugh. Aye, me lighthouse.
Yar, my boy, I went and round the block with the gat and went to the crib, or something like that. But it's like, I don't know, man. They, I don't know what they did to the lighthouses, but they're called cribs now. I don't know why. But anyways.
Also, by the way, you want to see somewhere else that's kind of haunting looking? Do you know Montauk off of New York?
Yeah, I do know Montauk. It's up here, right here. Yeah, Montauk, right there.
Yeah, Montauk. I believe there's a military, a testing ground or something around here that's U.S. Army related around this area. Have you seen it?
Nah. Well, actually, hang on. I think I have. Isn't it further out here somewhere?
I think it's called Camp Hero, maybe.
Camp Hero? You want to die a hero? Let's see if we can find it. It's got to be somewhere.
Someone in the chat's got to know what I'm talking about. It's up there. It's around Montauk, and it's a U.S. Army installation somewhere up there. I don't know the exact spot, but it's somewhere up here. It just really popped into mind. I wanted to take a look at it. It's a little haunting looking.
Let's see here. Camp Hero. Montauk, New York. There it is. We just passed right over it. Camp Hero State Park. Can we still fall in love this summer? Bro, they're not going to Hero Camp, buddy. Like, if they're trying to fall in love with you. Oh,
look, a radar installation.
Oh, look. Creepy. Oh, look. Abandoned concrete works. Edge steep embankment.
Do you know anything about Montauk? Why it's has a little bit of a reputation and stuff like that? Like, this is a former U.S. Army base, I believe.
Well, I know they have a reputation because of those really good, like, gooey cookies that you get that are Montauk style. But what's the real answer?
Yeah, that's true. It's actually like a source of conspiracy theories. There was allegedly some interesting activities that took place here around this area of Camp Hero. So yeah, Montauk Air Force Station. Maybe it was Air Force. I think the Air Force had it for a bit, and then maybe the Army Army had it. I might be getting it mixed up a little bit, but it was military. And there's conspiracy theories that some very interesting things and experiments took place here, but nobody's been able to prove it. And it's just a bit of a creepy site. I think the little series Stranger Things is based on this area right here. It's kind of based after, at least inspired by it.
Interesting. That's very interesting indeed. But nevertheless, Montauk itself is pretty cool. I don't know if the Long Island Railroad services Montauk. I don't think it goes out this far. But Montauk, the town, is pretty interesting itself. And it's on the very end of Long Island on the eastern side. Just on the southern end of the Sound. And I forget, the Long Island Sound. Aptly named after the Long Island. And then on the other side of the Long Island Sound, you can see this very sad, depressing place called Connecticut. I'm just kidding, guys. I'm just kidding. Connecticut is actually pretty cool. But beyond that, that is very interesting. But you know something, Matthew? I'm wondering, where in the world does the Long Island Railroad stop service? Because I know that they go all the way out to Hicksville, and then they go further than that. I don't know where they stop. Because there is no railroad service that goes out to Montauk, because I looked, there's no station in here. So I wonder how these people get... Oh, wait a minute. No way. Do they actually have a station in Montauk? Oh my god, they do. They actually do run services to Montauk. I'm just blind, folks. Look, you got this ugly train here that you can ride all the way out to Montauk from New York City. Isn't that great? Like, isn't that wonderful, y'all? You can actually get all the way out.
Nice.
Man, public transportation. It's crazy, isn't it?
Also, some people were saying, I've heard that they apparently experimented with children out there. That's one of the conspiracy theories running around, is something like that. A rumor had it maybe the CIA operated there for a little bit. Nobody really knows, and nobody will probably ever know. But it was a site of conspiracy theory galore, and it still is. Like, people still like make YouTube videos about it, talking about, oh, it's haunted and things like that. And also that guy that does like the like Stranger Facts or whatever. Number 13, it's the haunted place. That guy also did a video on it as well. So that's where I heard it from originally. And then I researched it. And I was like, this sounds like a load of crock. Like, I'm not sure if there's any like truth to it, but it is haunted allegedly by some people.
It's probably BS, man. Because from what I saw on like one of the placards, it was like this was a Air Force radar detection facility on Long Island looking over the Atlantic. It's like no one's going to be testing anyone in a radar facility. It's like, hey, kid, while we're running this radar, let's run some sick government experiments on you. It's like, what? That doesn't even make any sense. It's like, why would you do that at this place? Like, why not take him somewhere more remote, like upstate New York? Why on the very end of Long Island? It's like, that makes no sense to me.
Why don't you just take him up to Manhattan?
Yeah, I mean, hell, there's plenty of experiments being run in Manhattan. You seen the rats over there? Like, those things are huge. Like, they got to be feeding them something.
Man, what are they feeding those rats? I think they're trying to make them as big as they can make them. Like, those rats are like getting as large as people now. I think they're blending in.
Man, you're sitting there on the subway and you look over, you see a literal human-sized rat in human clothes, and it has like a New Yorker accent. It looks at you and says, "What? You never seen a New Yorker before?" Something like that. He's like, "Oh,
no,
nothing,
New York's
man."
Crazy, yo. There's a rat sitting next to me and he's talking. Man, I thought you was a nice guy, but you really just a rat.
Hey, what is there something wrong with it? Like, is there something wrong with me being a rat? Like, dude, I'm telling you, man, I think it's a plan to get a larger workforce active in New York City, because if you get the rats big enough, I mean, obviously they can go work a normal job, right?
Yeah, it's true. Also, you know, something else that happened on the subway, like talking about the rats on the subway and stuff like that, sitting there talking to people and everything. You remember, like, every time I think of Ukraine, I think of, like, New York subways in the same, like, line of reasoning and thinking and stuff like that. Really not reasoning, it's a little bit crazy, but I think about that Seinfeld episode. You remember when Kramer was on the subway and that guy was Ukrainian in the background?
Yeah.
And they were playing that board game of, like, world politics or geopolitics
Ukraine
or something.
is
And they're
weak.
like,
It's feeble.
Ukraine is weak. It's feeble.
Ukraine is not weak.
And Zelensky probably said, Ukraine is not weak. You make fun of Ukraine. They smashed their board and stuff. It's like, oh, man. I always think of that when I think about New York and Ukraine in the same sentence. It's funny.
Man. Dude, like, one thing I always think of when I think of New York City is I always think of this giant rail yard over here. I think it's called the Sunnyside. Yeah, it's the Sunnyside Yard. This thing is really cool, man, because this is actually where Amtrak keeps a lot of their like non-operational fleet that is in the Northeast Corridor. So they just put them all over in this one yard for the most part, and it's huge. Like, this thing is massive. And let me see if I can get a better picture of it. There we go. Here's a side shot of it. But there's all of this New Jersey Transit and also Amtrak stuff over here. Long Island Railroad.
There's those nasty Amtrak bathrooms. I have a picture of it right there on the left side. That goofy faucet, man, that you have to literally. That looks like a better one than what we dealt with, but you have to sit there and press it. It'll give you like a little ounce of water, and then you're like, oh my god, I gotta touch the nasty faucet again. You touch the faucet again, it gives you like another ounce of water. Oh my god, man, I'm never riding an Amtrak train again. I'm not doing it.
Dude, don't diss on Amtrak like that. It wasn't that
Not
bad.
doing
It was pretty nice. Like, I thought it was good.
I mean, I didn't like it. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I just didn't like it, man.
Man, I'll tell you what, man. He's just raining on the parade. That's all. Matthew just does that a lot these days, raining on parades. But nevertheless, I gotta say that's something I always think about because it's huge. You can see it from space. But another thing that I also think about is Lower Manhattan, specifically this area right down here. And specifically because there's a park called the Battery down here. So if you batter someone in the Battery, you're charged with battery. But are you really charged with battery? Because you're already in the Battery. So what's up with that? You know what I mean? Like, look at this thing. There's the park. It's always
they say the bunnies in Battery Park. They run around talking about buy Energizer or something like that. I don't know why, but they're just so energetic. Those bunnies. What the hell was that? Scroll back up. What was that statue on that?
Hey, we're over here. Like,
there's somebody drowning down there. Look at that.
All right.
What is this?
I don't know. Like, why are you asking me? I don't know. I don't
It's
know
that Montauk experiment. They're like, can we save this man from drowning? Let's pull him out and find out. But let's call Anthony first to make sure he's all right.
Dude, can we save this guy? Let's call in. Dude, that's what that guy's doing. He's shouting for Anthony up there in the statue. He's like,
Anthony!
Hey,
can I
Anthony!
Take him out the water? Can he get his lungs with some fresh air or what?
Dude, this guy's like, hey, yo, Anthony, is this guy able to be saved in that? And the guy down the water, he's going, boo! And he's like, hey, yo, Anthony, he's dying over here. We need an answer.
Anthony yelled back and said, if you say my full title, I might let you out the water. CPA, JD, MD, CPA, PSC, PhD.
No, man, Anthony sat there and said, oh, come on, man. Can we just get to Ukraine? Let him drown. You know, like that's what Anthony said. But, oh, my Lord, man. Goodness gracious, we have a fun time in the question segment, don't we, man? We have a fun time. But let me see if I can...
Someone said, as a New Yorker, this is painful, LOL. I'll tell you what, it might be painful, actually. I'll give you that. It might be painful because we're obviously not New Yorkers. We're Southern. So we're the farthest thing from New York you can probably get. But also, you know what is also kind of painful as well? When people try to imitate the Southern accent. That is painful, too. Like, I do have some pain in that. We've gotten used to it, though, because everybody, just loves to take a piss on the South, like when it comes to the accent and stuff like that. And people equate the accent to having lower intelligence, which is really a shame because there's really smart people down the South. But you know what? I get where you're coming from, Sean. Maybe as a New Yorker, it might be painful.
But you know something else that's really cool about the state of New York, Matthew? They actually have a place that all of their governors come from. Did you know that?
Governor's Island.
Yeah, they all are born and raised on Governor's Island.
Man, that figures too. They love to have picnics here on Governor Island. Governor Islands, they like to picnic. You know what the main course is at the picnic in the New York Governor's Island?
What?
It's baskets of money.
Oh wow! I thought it was
dear.
Turkish money. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the mayor of New
Oh
York.
crap! Oh, first class.
Oh no!
Oh crap!
Oh,
Jack.
no.
Whoa! Economy. Oh god.
Dude, we just cracked the case, folks. The mayor of New York is run by Turkish money. But beyond that, though, we also heard that Captain Picard's first officer actually came from Rikers Island, so named after the first officer of the USS Enterprise D, Commander Riker. It's very cool because they actually have these really neat X-shaped buildings on Rikers Island. The exact purpose is unknown, but they think it's a big plug for Elon's Twitter program that he just named X. We're not really sure on that one, though. We're still trying to get some confirmation, but there's a lot of people on that island that are walking around in like orange jumpsuits, and we always thought that that was a little bit weird, kind of a little too festive for the city of New York. Usually people don't like to stand out there, but you know, for each his own. And also, like, the noise must be loud under LaGuardia, you know, like the planes are always flying in. It must have been tough for Will Riker growing up on that island, you know?
Maybe so. Maybe so. Also, yeah, Rikers Island, that is where the prison's at. Phew, that's a rough one. Aren't they closing that? Did you mention that?
I think they did close that a while ago. I think it's been closed now for a couple of months, actually.
Yeah, that was a brutal one. It was like competing with those California prisons with like a
Oh
really bad
yeah.
gang presence in them. It was like up there on that level, like some real bad things happening in there. Basically, if you weren't in the gang, you were getting extorted, and then if you got in the gang, they would force you to go and try to shank somebody, and you'd have to prove your loyalty to the gang that way. So you were screwed any which way you went. If you went to Rikers or like one of those California prisons, you were screwed.
Now there is an island somewhere in New York City, around New York City, that they actually bury all of the unknown dead on. Did you know that, Matthew?
No, I didn't know that.
Let's see. Oh, I think it's this island. Yeah, I think it is this island right here. I think, yeah. Yeah, this must be it. I think this is it. I'm trying to find it. But many people die in New York City. People do not know this. And the city does not know the identity of these people. Sometimes they're homeless. Sometimes they just had no one else to turn to. So you can actually see right here up at Potter's Field, they have a mass cemetery. And so they'll take all the people who aren't identifiable and they don't have any next of kin to recover the corpse, and they'll load them up on a ferry, and the ferry will chug its way on from Manhattan up through the East River and into the Long Island Sound to Hart Island to Potter's Field, and then they'll go bury all the bodies there. And that's why you'll see this field has specific little strip-shaped areas and also these white little PVC pipe things, because the PVC pipes are actually installed while they're being buried, so that way when the bodies are decomposing, the gases are able to escape through the open shaft instead of exploding underground and creating little incidents where biological incidents could start to happen or seep into the surrounding water. Kind of an interesting thing with that. A lot of people don't know that, but there's actually a quite literal island of the dead near New York City.
Interesting. There's a lot of stuff that happened in New York recently that probably led to that as well. So,
Oh,
it's just
well,
been a doozy there.
well, the interesting thing with that is that the Wuhan Whirlybird actually did lead, I think, to Potter's Field almost being completely filled, crazily
Yeah,
enough. And so they were
yeah, it
trying to
did because of one bad decision.
Yeah, and so they were trying to figure out what to do. I think they're expanding the burial sites even further on down towards the abandoned hospitals and stuff, and the sanatoriums that are on the island. They're just starting to bury them in between these areas as well. But
Ugh.
it's pretty gruesome when you talk about Hart Island, and then we know where Takashi 69 came from because we have Rat Island right here.
Man, why do you keep bringing the guy up?
Because he's just known for the rest of all time as a rat dude. Like he's
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Like real quick, zoom back in on Rat Island for a minute.
Hey, look, it's Hot Dog Man, dude. He's right there. Like it's a problem.
No, like seriously though, like zoom is it? Can you zoom in anymore?
It's just rocks.
Man, why do they call it Rat Island? There's surely got to be a reason. This thing looks dumpy.
Well, let me go type in Rat Island. Let me find out why it's called Rat Island. Rat Island in the Bronx. So we found it. Rat Island is a privately owned island in New York City. It's approximately 2.5 acres in size and located in City Island Harbor, which is a part of the Long Island Sound. It's about halfway between City Island and Hart Island and south of High Island. It is one of the Pelham Islands. Let's see here. Rat Island was included in the purchase by Thomas Pell in 1654. During the typhoid fever scares, it was used as a typhoid quarantine hospital for about 40 infected people called the Pelham Penthouse. The remains of cobblestone walls and foundations are still there, and it was abandoned due to storm floods. No shit, it's a tiny island. Local legends say there was also a lighthouse for a while. But if you want to see what Rat Island looks like these days, they just got this statue of a rat on the island, and it's just rocks.
Hey, look at that, man. I tell you what, it's better to have like a rat statue on the island than some other weird junk. Like there's other owners of islands that put some really weird crap on the islands. Specifically, one really bad individual comes to mind down there in the, I think it's the Caribbean or something like that. He has an island down there, but at least this is just a rat statue. That's better than what it could be.
Man, bro, Rat Island is having nothing questionable happening on it at all. It's like this is just
I went to Rat Island. I went there and I said, "Oh my God, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm getting on the plane and I'm leaving."
There's not a lot of rats here, not a lot of rats. but beyond that, then we have City Island right here, which I don't know anything about, right next to the Graveyard Island. So, this actually looks pretty nice, actually, interestingly enough. I thought it was going to...
Yeah, also there was a taste of Italy over there. Like,
Taste of Italy, where?
yeah, behind you. Right here.
Fresh mozzarella, imported cheese.
I guarantee this place is Boston.
Let's take a look. We have to find out now. So, let's see, A Taste of Italy. It's an Italian deli. And it's got, oh, wow, it's got a 4.8 star, 56 reviews. So that's got to be pretty bussin'. Dude.
I bet they know a guy that knows a guy here, too. Oh, look at that sandwich.
Man. Dude, this looks pretty good. I'm not going to lie. If we're ever up this way, we might try this place out, to be entirely honest with you. But still, let's see here. What else do we have around New York City to make fun of? Not that we're trying to make fun of New York City, it's just that we're here, so we might as well take the chance, since it's shown itself. And so, let's see.
I bet the worst reviews ever at that New York State DMV Bronx License Center over there on the right. I bet that place has the worst reviews you'll ever see on anything.
Oh, no, actually, it's got
Wait,
a 3.9.
I'm shocked. Hold up, like, what?
We got to find the 1-star reviews, though. Hang on.
I am shocked, man. Like, are you telling me that a New York DMV has a better rating by like tenfold than an Alabama DMV? Like, that's wild.
That's
I'd expect it
crazy.
to be the rudest place ever.
Bad experience. Went different addresses changing my enhanced license window 12. She asked me in the last minute if I want something else. I asked her pick change. Then she said to go start over. Okay, I went to the window 4 to take a pic. An old lady in a conversation with a window about her taxes. Waited extra long until the window lady had enough sense to tell her to step away so she can take my pic. Then went back to window 12, got my temporary. When I got in my truck, look at the temporary and go figure, window 12, but my old address, I go back, she on break. Waited 20 minutes till she get back. When she gets back, she acts angry with me that I caught her mistake. No apologies, she said to cancel and start all over. What a bad experience. Hopefully when I get my license, it be a enhanced, not a regular lick. When you go there, double check to make sure there are no mistakes. Good luck. Thank
An
you.
enhanced license. I've never even heard of this. I didn't know that was a thing. I thought you could only get a regular driver's license. They want that enhanced one. They want that 4K license.
Man, mostly unpleasant and very unprofessional public servants per usual. Never give all the information you need to complete your task. This is a nationwide thing, it seems.
Man, I'll tell you what, when you see like the word public servant in the review, you know they went in there already with an attitude, and then they got confronted with a similar attitude, and then they're like, you can't mirror that attitude back to me. You're a public servant.
Yeah, you know it, man. Like, that's exactly what they did. They probably went in there and said, give me my license, you bastard. And then they say, hey, watch your mouth. Then they went, how dare you? Like, how dare you talk to me like this? You know they probably did that on no joke.
And those type of people always go in like, man, give me my license. I want it right now. And the moment they get attitude back, like, stand over there. They're like, yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. I always like it when people say sir, although, like, there's no reason to. It's like, you know, like, I'm all for respect, but it's like at the same time, you know, if someone's giving you a lip, why in the world start saying sir? It's like, hey, listen here, you know, like, you know, it's time to maybe drop a little bit of the civilities, get to the business. But let's see here. Manhattanville. I've never heard of Manhattanville, Matthew. Oh, wow, that looks cool.
Oh, that looks interesting. It looks like a boarding school.
Wow. Dude, this is actually kind of cool. And look, that's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, it is kind of cool a little bit.
It's very
There's
industrial.
a garbage truck parked on the side of the street.
Oh, it's a above ground railroad, or something like that. Very cool. That's actually pretty neat. I didn't know they had those still. There it is. There it is right there. That's wild. I thought that they had gotten rid of most of, if not all of those, but let's see here. Then here's Central Park. Everyone knows Central Park here. Oh, look at that. I don't know if I'd stay in this hotel.
Yikes, 2.8.
Oh my God, you're living in the barracks.
That's like one of those European deals, like those European bunk things that you can stay in. Oh, it is called it's called a hostel.
It's definitely going to be hostile in there. But let's see.
It's a hostile environment, hostile work environment.
Let's see. The Drunken Monkey. We have those down here in the South. Let's see here. Man, New York is one hell of a place. Oh, La Quinta. What's in La Quinta? For $339 a night, what can you get in New York City? Okay, well, that's a very small room for $339 a night. Okay, they give you a bed that's about as wide as yourselves. So not a lot of sleeping room here. But a nice hotel building. It is a nice hotel building, but the rooms are a little small, like really small.
You know, here's a test for you. Here's a test. Usually, nationwide, the Chipotles all have bad reviews. Find the nearest Chipotle here in New York and see what the reviews look like.
Chipotle. Okay, it looks like this is the closest one. Okay, maybe it was
4-star? Oh.
Ambience is
Ambiance is good. I highly recommend. There are seats at the counter as well. Crowded, but staffs handle it well. That's very nice. Price is a bit high. Okay, but anyways, go on down a little bit. Let's see what else they got. Really satisfying the lunch. Man, this is crazy. Like, I think Alabama might be the worst ones because I can't even eat here anymore, man. You know, everybody on the channel knows that Chipotle's doing me in Alabama. They're doing me wrong.
Let's see here. I'm not really seeing. Oh, portion sizes are below subpar. Let's see, underwhelming. Let's see, not worth visit. So generally they're saying that they don't like the portions. Location is always dirty, staff is rude, and has terrible customer service skills. I stood in there for 5 minutes. Nobody greeted me or took my orders if I wasn't standing there, and there was no other customers there. Never have anything refilled. I've tried to go here 4 days in the last week and a half. They never had brisket available or fresh meat. It's always a 20-minute wait. Literally the worst Chipotle I've ever been to. Interesting. This is the nastiest Chipotle I've ever been to in my life.
The reviews are so all over the place. I see people they're like, what the hell are we doing looking at Chipotle reviews? I had to look, folks. I had to look. Oh, there's Mexican Coke. But anyways, that was very interesting.
You said Mexican Coke, you got me interested. I went, oh, Buzzley, do we get to see? But what the hell is this over here? The Metro Transit Authority yard in the middle of the city? I didn't even know that these things existed. Wow, that's actually pretty cool, though. They just keep them out in the open like that, in the middle of the city.
That's a nice little place back over there in the back, whatever that is, that thing.
That thing.
What is that?
It's the vessel.
Electric lemon. The vessel.
The vessel?
The vessel of what?
I don't know. It's the vessel. It's pretty trippy, though. I'm not gonna lie.
That's pretty cool, actually. I like that.
Yeah, you can look over the train yard out into the Hudson River. It's like, that's kind of cool, actually. That's pretty neat that they just have something like that. Also, we got a homage to Harambe.
Yo. Harambe acting kind of sus.
Harambe is single, just in case if anyone's wondering. But moving on out of that picture, it is time for us to grab more questions because we've been in New York City for too long, laughing and talking about too much stuff. But still, with that, Matthew, what's the next one we got? Do we have one from Anthony?
All right, so we don't have one from Anthony, but we do have some live chat questions to get here from the spreadsheet, and it looks like our first one is going to go to Susan Cook, who says, White Spruce outside of CFS Yorkton, Sask, was an RCAF SAGE-compatible radar base until 86. I lived there until 1969 through 74. It is now a provincial training center for criminals. Did you know?
I did not know that, and that is actually pretty cool. I think from what I'm understanding, it's some sort of a base. Unfortunately, I don't know all of the abbreviations, and so I would have to declare ignorance on some of that. But still, that is pretty interesting to hear, and I thank you for sharing that with us, and I thank you greatly. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, Nickelodeon's surname said, you guys don't even need a war to have your channel. Well, like, you know, this segment is interesting. Like, obviously, so surprisingly, we're retaining quite a lot of people, like just yapping, really. Like, that's just straight up yapping what we were just doing just there. But we do need substance, like actual substance on here. And also, our mission on the channel is to cover the war. So we're yapping now, but that could never just be like the whole substance of the channel. That would be a bit of a letdown for anybody that wants some real content there. But anyways, moving on from that, we are moving on to a live chat question, which goes to Avari Mendebratis. They said, why didn't the SSG forces head west to the Russian base in Bashar al-Assad International Airport?
And I believe that you're talking about the Latakia Air Base down here. And that would be the one. I don't know why they didn't. That's a good question. Unfortunately, I don't know the exact strategy and plan of the SSG, so I couldn't explain why they decided not to do that. Maybe because their plan is to more so destroy the Syrian government, because if they do that, the Russians really have to leave. There's really no way that they can stay because they don't have ground forces there that actually fight on the ground. It's more so just support forces like the Air Force and Army aviation units. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I'm absolutely blown away by how many people actually like the yapping segment there. So many people are saying, I actually like the yapping. Very interesting. That's actually intriguing to me. I would have figured that people would have been like, okay, 5 minutes of yapping, and we got to move on to something else because this is getting old. But very cool. Oh, also, by the way, huge shout out to Marcy Craven, who just threw in a $100 donation to the fundraiser and almost brought us up to $4,000. We're literally about $50 shy of hitting that $4,000 mark, thanks to Marcy. So that is crazy. Let's see, Ed just threw in a 5 as well to help bring us up to that 4,000. I think we're going to hit that before the stream's out tonight. But anyways, moving on here to our next live chat question. This one goes to Hal Rose. He says, Putin has been pushing a bad position since day one when the Javelins rendered his Soviet-era tanks instantly obsolete. What say you?
I would agree. It's been a bad position. I just don't see where they're coming from these days. But nevertheless, they continue to press onwards. But I would agree with you, not really that great of a position. I also have to say, though, before we move on to the next one, though, Matthew, it is very interesting to see that people just find the yapping to be interesting. Because I was sitting there thinking, I was like, I don't know if we're really stretching this to come up with stuff or what. I'm like, I don't even know if people are liking this. But then there was nothing but people saying, no, I like the yapping. That's master yapping right there. I'm like, dang, I didn't even know. Like, I thought we were just kind of like stalling almost. It felt like for a second because I was having a fun time with it. But then I was thinking, dang, people probably want to hear like real news, long-lasting news, or
when you're rushing and there's no time for stalling, you just start yapping.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like, that's interesting to me, really. I mean, like, really, it's really quite interesting to me.
And you missed my joke. You missed it. You missed my joke.
No, I got the Russian and Stalin thing and all that. Like, I heard
it. It just wasn't funny then.
No, I just didn't laugh at it. I'm just kidding with you.
Thank you.
I'm just kidding. Don't be sad. Don't be sad. I'm just kidding, man. I was just like...
I wasn't sad, man. I was getting mad. I was getting mad.
Oh,
but then I remembered, I have to call Anthony to get permission to get mad, so I just let it go.
Yes, Matthew, we do have to call Anthony on that. Can we get him on the phone? Also, what is the USS Juno building? I don't understand. What is this building? What does it do? I have no clue. But there are helicopter tours right here. Oh, wow, that's
oh, wow, look at that. That's a Flinyon. What does that say? What does that say? Fly New York. Fly New York on.
That's a weird name.
That's a Flinyon.
Man, that's like the off-brand Funyun. It's a Flinyon. It looks like it, bro. It's like, but look, they flew over the Statue of Liberty here, and they flew over Central Park. I don't know if that's safe to have your foot dangling out the helicopter like that, but I don't know. I'm not no flight expert. Look at these.
And wait a minute. Wait a second. We just got a $100 donation from Anonymous to the fundraiser and also a $50 donation from Tina. And they both brought us up to $4,112 on the fundraiser. So we are officially over 4,000, and that is crazy to see indeed. And once again, huge shout out for everybody helping us to get the 4,000. Because actually, we're just thankful we hit the goal tonight. So we're well above it once again. So the LSA came through and then a little extra on top of it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say, a massive shout out to everyone who got us to this point tonight. We're now at $4,062, and it's really incredible to see that all of you was able to do it. And so with that, a massive shout out and a congratulations to you. And with that, we are now going to be moving back on into New York City once again to make sure that we give you all the yap, because we are professional yappers. And I see that a lot of people, some people said that we actually have the gift of gab. I wouldn't go that far, but I would say that sometimes we do come up with interesting things from time to time. And also one other interesting thing that I want to show y'all here is, because I think this is a really interesting thing here for all of you. Really in a large amount of you. And let me see here. Let me see, where the hell? Okay, so where the hell's the International Airport Station? So here's the Newark station. So it goes this way, and then it goes this way, and then eventually it goes into a tunnel somewhere around here. Where the hell's the tunnel? Is it over here? Yeah, it's over here. It's over here. No, it's not. Where the hell's the tunnel? Anyways, from Newark, you go into a tunnel that goes under the Hudson River, and then it goes into New York City. That's how you get into New York City by train. Pretty cool fact, by the way, just in case y'all didn't know. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, so our next question from the live chat is going to go to Don Rament, who says, is Assad under indictment by the ICC? And if he is, which he probably is, I'd imagine, I don't know that for a fact, we'll probably have to check it, but if he is, it doesn't matter because the ICC can't really get him, so it does no good. It's the ICC. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with Matthew. I don't really know if it is or isn't under indictment by the ICC. I don't know why I just called Assad it. I don't know why, but regardless, it wouldn't matter. The ICC is pretty much pointless. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Up Guy, who says, how long do y'all think it'll take Ukraine to reach 1 million casualties for Russia?
Probably not much longer. I'd say if the war goes on another 4 or 5 months, they're pretty much guaranteed to surpass 1 million wounded and killed, in my opinion. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Uncle Sam's misguided child, who says, any news about the Ukrainian intelligence hacking Iranian drones meant for them, but they then sent them to Belarus? That's spoofing, isn't it? I've been hearing they've been spoofing drones and sending them back to the launch site inside of Russia, but I haven't heard of them redirecting them to Belarus.
I haven't heard about that either. So I would have to declare ignorance on that one for now because I just don't have enough information to be able to talk about it. But I do thank you for asking the question. Very interesting one. And we were on to the next one.
All right. And our next one here goes to Anonymous, who says, are there any reports of the West supplying the rebels with drones or any other equipment?
Yes, we supply them with Humvees and other kinds of small arms, but really beyond that, we don't provide the SDF with a lot of stuff. It's really just a more so smaller amount on the light infantry side of things. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And also, Mandy, what do we have here from this person? Let's see. What the hell are you talking about here? I don't understand. What does it have to do with people wanting to travel south? You know. Let me answer this question here. I just saw someone say this, and I want to boil this down to something a lot simpler. Because this is something to me, Matt, that I always get a laugh out of. And also, by the way, this isn't political. We're not starting a political conversation here. I just want to read this because there's a lot easier of an answer here than that one. So someone said, seems an awful lot of Yanks want to retire in the South despite the majority currently opposing the ideological views down here. Something of truth here. Have you ever thought, just for a second, all right, hear me out, it's warmer down here, so it's more comfortable for people down here. So when people get enough money and they retire, they want to go live at Del Boca Vista in Florida because it's warmer. Like, that's generally why they come down here. It's not because the politics are better or worse. It's because it's warmer. Like, you know, every single thing that people do in America isn't always because of a political party. You know, sometimes it's just because the temperature's a little warmer, so they move. You know, it's kind of like saying, you know, if Matthew and me move for some reason to, say, Colorado, we move from Alabama because the governor sucks. Like, honestly, I don't live with the governor, so I don't really care about the governor. I'm moving for different reasons if we do move. So, you know, that's kind of what I have to say on that, you know, because every single thing that happens in this country, it isn't exactly because of the whole political thing, you know what I mean? Not just...
Here's a question I've got on a separate note real quick. I was just thinking about it. We all know the phenomenon of the Florida man. Like, the Florida man is down there in Florida. It's something that we all know about. Like, pretty much everybody knows about that. We may not know about a Charizard, but we know about the Florida man. Was the Florida man, is that a native Floridian, or is it because of all the Northerners moving into Florida, and that's who became the Florida man? Which one is it? The native ones or the non-native ones?
I would have to tell you, Matthew, all of those people are native Floridians because you and me know what native Floridians are generally like one block off the beach, and they are methed out. So, I just got to say, I think those are the natives.
Meth. I don't know if it's meth. I think it's just a natural thing. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, I saw a video yesterday of a Florida man, the typical Florida man. He went on the side of an interstate. He started wrestling an alligator and started making growling noises, going, rah, 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 and he grabbed the alligator by the snout and started wrestling the alligator. The alligator turned around and bit the hell out of his arm. And then the guy jumped back on the alligator and started wrestling it again. Then it flipped him and did that like death roll thing. And then the guy crawled off, whimpered like a dog, and then he walked away and asked if anybody had a bite to eat.
What? Wait, that was real?
Yeah. Yeah, that's real. There's actually a video out there of the guy wrestling the alligator, getting bit by it, growling and all that stuff. I don't know if that's meth.
It sounds like, that's a tough one. Yeah, because that's a little bit too extreme. It'd be some of that fine Peruvian blow. It's gotta be, man.
Oh man, let's call in the expert. Tell us which one was it? Was it the meth or the fine Peruvian blow?
Oh man, I'm telling you what. When I come around, school's closed because it's like a snow day. Oh man, but it ain't no real snow. Oh man, goodness gracious. But beyond that. I would have to say, Matthew, it's certainly not the people moving into Florida. It's the people who live in Florida. No disrespect to
It
people
could
who
be.
live in Florida that are watching this channel, but y'all know what's up. Everyone in the South knows about the Florida people. And, like, the Florida people make a pretty bad rap for the state of Florida as a whole. Like, that's just generally how it goes. Also, when I say Florida, I'm saying it like Northerners do. We say Florida, but I say Florida because most of our audience, from what we've seen analytically, is not from the South. They're actually from everywhere else in America but the South. So we say Florida, so that way it makes sense to everyone else that's not using a Southern dialect, but it's actually Florida. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And also, Chris Bradford, Disneyland is not in Florida. We actually have the superior version, which is actually Disney World. And Disney World's made up of a large amount of super huge parks. Like the Magic Kingdom here, I believe, if I remember correctly, is bigger than the entirety of Disneyland. Disneyland's the one off in California, but it was the first ever made. Disney World came after Disneyland.
You know what's interesting as well? How many people get that mixed up and like get tickets for Disneyland and then they drive to Florida. And interestingly enough, I've heard, at least the rumor on the street is, if you show up with a Disneyland ticket to Disney World, they will switch it out for the right ticket and let you in anyway. That's the rumor on the street.
Really?
Yeah, because so many people get it mixed up because, some people will go out to California thinking that's Disney World. Some people go to Florida thinking it's Disneyland. And obviously it's the reverse of that. And so many people do it. They just started making exceptions to it. But I'm sure now that I've said that, they'll probably never do that again, probably. So I don't know.
You know what's really weird looking at this, Matthew? I'm not going to lie. It's not really a big park when you look at it from above. Like, it's pretty small, actually.
Show me the scale, like down at the bottom. Like zoom out a little bit more so I can see what a mile looks like on this map.
So let's see here. Let me just measure in width. So here's the old Splash Mountain ride, and then here's Space Mountain. So it is literally only a half-mile wide at its widest.
It feels a lot more than that when you're walking around. It feels like it's freaking huge.
Yeah, that's not big at all, though. Like, that's crazy to think about. Like, it's only a quarter-mile wide from end to end. Like,
But like Melanie said, though, that is just one of the 5 parks. So there are 5 other ones. In reality, though, there's really not 5 because the Hollywood, whatever it's called, the Hollywood Park, the one with the movie stuff in it.
Yeah,
That's really not really a theme park, in my opinion. That's more of like just an attraction or something. The real ones are that
Epcot.
What is it? The Wilderness one. What is that called? Jurassic something? What's that one called?
That one's the Animal Kingdom. Then they have Epcot. Then they have
Epcot, Animal Kingdom, Magic Kingdom. Those are the 3 like real ones in my opinion.
Oh, I would have to say kind of sort of. Let's go see how big the Animal Kingdom park is. Like, let's see here. There's Everest. Dude, Everest looks so jank when you actually see it from space. Look at that. Like, that doesn't even look cool from here.
That ride scared the hell out of me. I can't remember when we went to Walt Disney World. It was like freaking 10 years ago or something like that. It was a long time ago. I rode this thing against my better judgment, and that thing, I couldn't handle this one, man. This was too much.
It was a lot. But one thing I loved was that Kali River Rapids, wherever that was. Where was that in the park? There it is right here. This was like the coolest ride in the park, in my opinion, was this one. Remember it, Matthew? Like the smells.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
All that. Like, it was so cool. Like, it was really neat. Like, I love this park. But how wide is this one at its widest? So we're going to measure this one top to bottom, including the whole Kilimanjaro Safari deal that's included. So let's see here. So this one is nearly a mile in length, but the real usable area of the park that you can walk in at its longest is only about 2,000 feet. So it's not really that big either. In fact, the parking lots outside of it is bigger than the park itself, it seems.
You know what really gets you, though? I think what makes people think it's really longer than it is, because when you start sweating halfway through the park and you've walked, you're like 0.2 of a mile through the park, and you realize, I need some water. And then you stop at the water stand, you're like, can I have a water? And they're like, $10. And you're like, oh, God, I just have to keep walking and forgo the water. And then you start like just basically dragging along the floor and trying to like drag your way through it. Man, the prices are ridiculous in there, though. Like, they realize once they've got you in there, like, they can charge you anything they pretty much want and get away with it. It's wild. style.
Yeah, also, I like how this area of hotels down here, Matthew, literally looks like Rikers Island. No joke. It looks like it looks like they brought Rikers Island down to Disney World with how these
It
hotel
does.
buildings are shaped up. Yeah, it looks like a prison. No joke, from space. But let's see here. What else do we... Okay, so Hollywood Studios is... It is a park in my definition because it has all of its attractions and stuff. It's like a separate park, but it isn't big. It's only 1,900 feet across at its deepest. And if you include the Star Wars area to it, it's only about 2,200 feet deep. So about a half mile from beginning to end. That's not really that long. I think they use a lot of optical illusion work with the size of the buildings, you know, like everyone always publicly talks about now, to give you some sort of false depth perception to make the park seem way larger, because none of these places are really big, like, at all. Like, a lot of these buildings are incredibly small. Wait a minute, don't they have the Chinese theater at this place, Matthew? Like, you know, like that mock-up?
Maybe. I think so.
Let's see here. Let me think. It's somewhere around here. And if I can find it, I'm going to show it to y'all. So there's the Hollywood Tower of Terror. Let's go look. Is this really based? Dude, that's 100% got to be based on that Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. Like, it's got to be. It just looks like it. Like, it's got like the same shape and everything.
Oh, the inside though. Look at it.
Yeah,
the inside
looks
literally
just
exactly
like
it.
Yeah, because this is the hotel we stayed in when we went to Hollywood. Do not, like, I got to tell you, I was not a big fan of that hotel. I would not go to it again. But this looks exactly, it is the interior of the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. So that's got to be.
You know, this was actually more accurate than the real deal. Like, it felt like this when you ran it, like the cobwebs and everything like that.
Yeah, and the dark lighting, and then those spooky moaning sounds you heard from the other rooms around us, which was in the pool. Like, it was very weird, very spooky. Even I would say that it was not a place for families because children might be scared. Others may be scarred for life from what you would see at that hotel. I would say, if anything, it was more like the. How do I say this in a very diplomatic way for all the folks who may be from Hollywood? It was kind of like the whorehouse from Of Mice and Men, more so than a hotel. Like, that's really the most diplomatic way I can put that, and that doesn't even sound that good. That sounds really crass, but that was the way it came off to me, and I was like, this just isn't really my place, like, to be entirely honest. But I gotta find that Chinese theater, because I feel like in this park it's going to be about the same. Wait a minute, that's it right here. Hang on, we found it. So y'all aren't going to believe this. This is actually about the same size of the one in real life. It's not that much bigger.
Yeah, it looks almost similar to it, except this one's a little bit green.
I'm not going to lie. This one actually looks nicer than the one in real life. The one in real life actually looked like dog water. Let me go show y'all that one, because y'all aren't going to believe how much worse it looks when you see it in real life. So we go up here to Hollywood, and we go to the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and then we go down the length. And we're going the right way. And here we go, the Chinese theater right here. And then we drop down right here. And that's what it looks like in real life. It looks worse. Like, no joke, it actually is better at the Disney park than it is in real life, which is the craziest thing about this thing.
I'm not gonna lie though, like, I know we've dogged on Los Angeles, at least for like how unclean it is in some places. There are nice parts of it, but those areas are like crazy expensive. Like, you know, like you had to be freaking like a billionaire to afford to live there. But it was intriguing to go here. I wouldn't live here personally, I don't think. But it was intriguing to go there. I would like to go back to it one day just to visit it, just to go to that top part. We weren't able to go to the mountains, like the Beverly Hills right behind it. We weren't able to go into that, and I wanted to see it. I'll be fascinated to see it one more time, but I wouldn't live here personally.
I'm not going to lie. LA was not that bad. Hollywood was hell. Like, Hollywood, in my opinion, was in veritable hell. I would never return back to Hollywood, but I would want to see other places of LA that we didn't get to see because of little glimpses that we got, because we generally were in Hollywood the most time. It was cool. Like, it wasn't bad. So I would want to see it again, me personally, just to get a better look and feel of the place. So, you know, I would go and see it again, but Hollywood was terrible. Like, never go to Hollywood. That was an absolute waste. Like, I cannot say enough bad things about Hollywood. It was a terrible place. But anyways, I hope that does address it well. Also, now that I know what Hollywood looks like, whenever I hear people say, oh, that's just Hollywood business, I'm like, trust me, the people who are in show business are not in Hollywood. I think they would be anywhere but Hollywood because Hollywood is that bad. Like it is a hive of debauchery and scum. It's like Tatooine or something like that from Star Wars, whatever the hell that guy said about it. It was bad. Like it was so bad it was unbelievable. Like it was dirty, it was unclean. Like it just reeked of like trash and filth. Like no joke, it just reeked of like old garbage. It was a horrendous place. Never would go there again. But anyways, with that, I believe we are on to the third to last question of the night after that long Yapaholics rant.
All right, so this one is going to go to Leora Avigile, who said, you guys should get Zelensky for an interview to let him know about the hard work this community has done for sure. And Leora, we have sent a Twitter, I don't know why I said it like that. We have sent a tweet to Zelensky when he actually responded back to Lex Fridman about going on an interview on his show. So we obviously have not heard back from Zelensky. I think the odds of it happening are probably not very good, but of course, we would love to have Zelensky on the show since we've raised so much money to help out the Ukrainian charities and stuff like that. We would love to have him on so that way he could see all the work that we have done on the channel for the Ukrainian charities. So that would be pretty cool. And also, we'd love to have him on to ask him some questions as well, like some actual real journalistic questions to actually ask him. I would actually be very curious. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say it would be cool to have Zelensky on, but I have a feeling that interview is probably not going to happen because we were duly noted and ignored, which is no big deal to us because we cover the news regardless. But I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Shadowskill, who says, will Ukraine join NATO or form its own alliance after the war? And it's odd that they get weapons but no troops, making us look weak and embolden our adversaries.
I would say they're certainly not making their own alliance. There's really no one that can join. They're either a part of NATO or in the Russian sphere, so there's really no one up for grabs in this area. They're probably going to join NATO after the war, if anything, and that's really all I can say on that so far, because going beyond that would be too much crystal balling, and many things could change in between now and then. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, it's time for us to get on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is going to be Mad Machine, who says, after the last-minute shipment of arms from the United States, how long can Western Europe keep Ukraine supplied with arms and ammunition before the U.S. needs to send more?
Probably for about a half year or 4 months, I would assume, until U.S. support really needs to be ramped up again. That would be my assumption, but I would honestly have to say I think U.S. support isn't really going to have a lag time at any point in the future, but we'll have to wait and see if that's true or not. But still, that is the end of tonight's news. And I got to thank everyone so much once again for watching. It has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to talk to each and every one of y'all and joke around and also get to tell you all the news. We love doing it. It is an absolutely incredible thing that we get to do with all of y'all. And also, I've got to give a huge shout out to about the 800 people who joined the LSA today that just subscribed, because we have now reached a whopping 321,307 subscribers. And crazily enough, we actually had about 12.3 people, not 12.3 people, but 12.3 thousand people on the stream tonight. And right now we still have about 6.4 thousand people here, with about 89,000 people having watched the stream so far. Also, one other thing I'd want to say is I want to give a huge shout out to everyone who is watching this channel and finding it to be their primary source of news. Crazily enough, just about every single day we're on air, we are in the top 50 of the ratings in the United States for YouTube live streams, pretty much every single day of the week at this point. And we've got to say that we are entirely honored and greatly appreciative that we've been put in such a high position to pretty much be one of the leading voices of news here on YouTube. And so thank you all so much once again for watching, and we will see you all on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And if there's enough news to cover tomorrow, y'all will see me in a short war video. And so with that, congratulations for once again raising over $4,000 on the fundraiser. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Herom Slava, and long live the Leaf Spring Army, and the Leaf Spring Army will never die.
And also, by the way, people, I neglected the Morse code decoders of the night. So I'm going to call that off right now before we get off the stream. We had tonight Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Kevin J., Paul Schultz, David Millsaps for Royal Fluffiness, and Arabelle Garbo. They said the Morse code says Syria is collapsing so quickly, the Russians pulling out the old trick of bomb everyone and LLT, LSA. And ding, 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 ding. Thank you very much, Morse code decoders, for once again figuring that out and sending that in once again. And also, let me get rid of this one bot here. He said the dude never shuts up. Dude, that's called a talk show, and that's what you're listening to. Call Anthony if you don't like it. But anyways, with that, folks, thank you all once again for another fantastic stream tonight and helping us to hit that fundraising goal of $3,000. We're well above it now at $4,200 raised, and that is tremendous to see. So once again, we'll see you all on Tuesday night. Get some rest, and of course, Slava Ukraine, Heroem Slava, and of course, good night.
Yes.